Well, hey, everybody, and good evening. Today, we're going to be continuing our coverage in the Idaho University case, and this has been an unfortunate situation. I can't believe that today they were saying that they're going to come out and have a huge update, and it turned out to be what feels like nothing. And then there's been a story circulating around. I don't know if it's fake news or not. We need to definitely get down to the bottom of it, but several outlets, including the New York Post, was reporting that Kaylee Goncalves' father came out and said that Kaylee had big open wounds and was calling the cops cowards. I don't know, kind of sounds like something he would say. And I don't know how so many different news agencies were coming out and reporting it and saying that this is what was said and this is what happened if they weren't able to like cite it. And then somebody was posting essentially like a screenshot um, of a quote that looked like from Olivia, and just like, hey, sorry, my dad didn't say that. And so, like, I don't know what to believe. One screenshot from a comment on a social media, that's hard for me to receive as facts when there's so many other news outlets posting it and saying that it was said. Plus, it sort of sounds like something that Steve would say. And so, for that reason, I'm like, gosh, I need to investigate that and understand it, from that perspective. I know that the local law enforcement agencies are not wanting them to come and put together a reward because sort of it seems like if a law enforcement was to say like, hey, yeah, we're seeking a reward in this case, it almost then would detract from their ability to want the public to feel like they have it all together. In other words, if they're asking for a reward, they would have to admit that they need leads and don't know what exactly is going on. And so, again, crazy, right? And then finally, another little piece of thing that I want to continue to talk about today. This was just released just a couple minutes ago, but investigators have collected hours and hours and hours and hours of evidence from a nearby gas station. And so I wonder, maybe that's the place that they were getting the tip from, as it pertained to the white Hyundai Elantra. Was there information that the white Hyundai Elantra drove by that gas station? I don't know. You guys tell me. So there's a lot tonight that we're going to unpack and continue to dive into together. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about our time together. If you guys don't mind, just as we're getting started, hit that like button. That's going to help shoot us out into the YouTube algorithm. And if you also don't mind subscribing to this channel, great way to help us out. You can also support through PayPal, Cash App, which is $ Tyler Feller 22, or a Venmo, which is at Tyler-Feller. We're totally crowdfunded, so it takes all of us doing together what we cannot do alone, which means if you enjoyed this channel or channels like it, it's really amazing if you go ahead and support them, because that's literally the only way that we can continue doing coverage of these cases. I also started using a brand new app and put a link to it in the channel. Several other true crime YouTube creators are using this app. It's sort of becoming like a go-to place for a lot of us. Just as a quick thought, today I posted a video on there talking about what was going on with Steve Goncalves, and so I put a link to that in the chat. Like, I pinned the link to it in the chat. Just hit that and then go find my name. It's just Tyler Feller with no spaces. You should easily be able to find me. So the other final thing that I wanted to share with you guys, and I thought it was really interesting, like Dr. Phil today did a whole episode. We can play snippets from it, but we can't play the whole episode because, like, for example, during the Gabby Petito case, he was zapping people and striking people who were using his content. And we're going to show some of those clips towards the end of the show tonight, because if we play them near the beginning, there's a chance that they're using a software called Content ID, which some channels have access to, that anytime anybody starts playing your content or footage, it automatically just shuts your YouTube channel down. We've had that happen to us a couple of different times as we were covering stuff. And so he's the kind of guy that does that. I don't know if he does it or whoever's managing his digital media. So we don't want that to happen. But in the big episode today on Dr. Phil, which I did watch, one of the things that he came out and said was like, we have exclusive photographs from the Daily Mail. Like, that was sort of like the big thing. The photographs were not exclusive photographs. They were the same photographs that we've shown on this show multiple times. And so I was totally confused why he was like, we have exclusive photographs. I was like, calm down, sir. We've seen these photographs before. And if he had read the article from the Daily Mail that I was reading yesterday, he wouldn't want to be putting the Daily Mail columnist on his show, because they were calling the Elantra, number one, they spelled it wrong. They're calling it a four-door or a four-seater car when it's clearly a five-seater car. And they had several other facts wrong. For example, saying that the murder took place between 2 and 3 local time. That doesn't even make sense. The authorities have been saying it took place between 3 and 6 a.m. And most recently, the authorities have said it took place between 3 and 4 a.m. We know that Kaylee and Maddie made 10 phone calls between about 2:30 and 2:52 a.m. And so it's like, well, we know it didn't happen between 2 and 3 a.m. And so I'm like, gosh, we got to get off of this website. And then next thing I know, today they're on Dr. Phil and he's touting them as like amazing journalists in this case. And so I was scratching my head like, I don't understand how that took place, because if he had read the article and knew some of the basic facts going on, then I don't understand how he could have those two things together. One thing that was interesting on the Dr. Phil show, and like I said, towards the end of the episode today, we'll talk about it. But he was just talking about um, the type of person who possibly did this. Like if it wasn't a targeted event, then he called it somebody that would be called like the dark triad, which is a collection of mental illnesses, which would be like narcissism, psychopathy, and I forgot what the third one was. But anyways, it leads to like this really dark place where people could come in and murder. And he said if this was not a targeted event, then it could have been somebody who has the dark triad. And typically, what you'll see is if it, and he made it a point at the end of the show to look in the camera and say, somebody watching knows who this is. Somebody watching right now, you know who did this. And I thought that was really interesting. He said, there's someone in your life that had a baseline of behavior, and their behavior now has started to go up and down, up and down, up and down because of what happened. And so I thought that was a really interesting point. And he said, so you need to tell him. He said, if it was the dark triad, he said they wait 30 days before they would do something again. Well, tomorrow, guys, it's the 1 month mark. So I don't know if that's very reassuring to people. People are saying Dr. Phil doesn't know. Well, he was right about a lot of other cases. He's been right about a lot of cases. You don't have to like him, but as far as I can tell, he's one of the only ones that are doing extensive coverage on it from a huge mainstream platform right now. And I think what he had to say was interesting. So you don't have to like him, but I'm just telling you what he said on his show today. Hey, Lanny, thank you so much for that super sticker. What a blessing. Thank you for supporting our channel today. I really appreciate that. Mm, mm, mm. There you go. What a blessing. Okay. So let's just go through these photos that were like supposedly, whatever exclusive photos today on the Dr. Phil show. We've already seen this photo. All we see is a home. I wish this little caption wasn't there. You guys can see some like food and alcohol out on the table, which I don't know why they wouldn't clean up, but there's a stack of red solo cups, several cereal bowls with spoons still in them, microwavable popcorn. It looks like a McDonald's Frappuccino cup right there. Some kind of like hand sanitizer or medicine, possibly a plant back there. Just picture of table in the house. They were saying that this was a computer. This does not look like a computer to me. This looks like 100% a TV. Red solo cups, already seen that. But there was a picture I wanted to point out to you guys. Let me see if I passed it. Nope. Okay. Similar photo we've already looked at. This is the photo I wanted to point out to you guys. Not because of the mess here on the table, but this part of the door frame. What do you guys think is going on in that door frame? Is that just like they got a little excessive when they were trying to stain the wood door? Or do you think that that's blood? You tell me what you think. Oh, they said it's a cabinet. It's not a door frame? Huh? It doesn't look like a cabinet to me. Hey, thank you, Melissa. Thank you for that super sticker. It's not the window being dirty. Whoever says it's the window being dirty, I'm sorry. It's not the window being dirty, because you can see it stops right there. That does not look like a cabinet. That doesn't even match here to the right's cabinet. It's clearly a door. So, you tell me what it is. You think it's not blood, blood. I don't understand why you guys keep saying it's a refrigerator. It doesn't look anything like a refrigerator. And it doesn't match the cabinets to the right, and we know that the apartment had all matching cabinets. So, it just looks like a door to me. But anyways, put 1 if you think it's blood, put 2 if you don't think it's blood. I'm curious what you think. Yeah, I think they took those pictures down, Mallory. You said just look it up. I'll see what I can find. Because, I mean, I'm not trying to start a fight. I could care less. It doesn't even matter to the point of what I'm trying to say, which is it blood or not blood? Okay, on rentcollegepads.com, there's photos of the kitchen. Okay, I see why you guys say it's a cabinet now. Um, but that exact angle is not on there. And on Zillow, they took the photos down. So, uh, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. The question was whether or not it's blood. It's like halfway down the middle. Who knows? I don't know what to think. I'm with Mallory. I don't know what the heck it could be if it's not blood. You know what I mean? Like it just, okay, I'm out. Bye. I don't know what we did to make them so upset. We're just getting started on the stream. Hey, one of the things that'd be really amazing if you guys wanted to help us out today would be to send a super sticker super chat. We do a thing called the super chat train. It's just a way that we can just meet our goals. I'm hoping that we can start off with 21 super chats on our super chat train. Be amazing blessing if anybody wants to hop aboard. Looks like blood to me. Yeah, it absolutely looks like blood to me. So, anyways, Dr. Phil was like, we have exclusive photos. Nothing really felt too exclusive to me. When I look at that particular picture, it stuck out to me. I'm like, that looks like possibly blood. So, all right, I want to show you guys the video where they're talking about what they're doing from the gas station.
This holiday season.
Oh, commercial. Sprouts. Does anybody go to Sprouts?
For University of Iowa students, the mystery continues here. Police trying to track down now a white Hyundai car like the one on the left that was spotted near the murder scene. And we're getting new information from the local coroner. Correspondent Alexis McAdams on the ground in Moscow, Idaho, with the very latest today. Hi, Alexis.
Hi, Martha. Yeah, the coroner here in Idaho tells me that investigators did put paper bags on the victim's hands inside of the home before they moved the bodies, which is critical to preserve DNA evidence. The hands, Martha, are so important in this investigation because if these victims were able to try and fight off the killer, they could have that killer's DNA, like their hair, skin, or blood.
One of the things that they did say on the Dr. Phil episode today, which I thought was really interesting, was that the knife that the individual was using would have been less sharp as the night progressed. So one of the ways that they'll be able to find the sequence of events as far as who was murdered first would be by whoever was murdered last. Their wounds would be not as deep and their bones wouldn't be cut as much. And I know that's graphic. I'm not trying to be, but I am just trying to share with you guys what they said today, which I hadn't heard that yet. Like, I'm not an expert on what happens to a knife when you quadruple murder somebody. I had no idea what happened. And so it was interesting to hear them say that whoever was the fourth person murdered has significantly weakened depth of wounds and less puncture to the bones compared to the person who would have been murdered first. And so that was an interesting point. Hey, Kenna, thank you for that super sticker. You too, Amy Heights. Thank you guys for hopping aboard our super sticker train. That takes 2 of you guys. What an amazing blessing. Thank you guys for hopping aboard our super sticker train. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Underneath their fingernails, which is now being tested. Take a look here. This is the latest video that we've had on the ground here. You can see the layout of the crime scene. 1 month later, still no suspect, motive, or a murder weapon. The bodies found hours after investigators say Maddie and Kaylee were killed on the 3rd floor, Ethan and Xana on the 2nd, and those 2 surviving roommates who say they were sleeping were found uninjured on the 1st floor. This video shows Kaylee and Maddie out at a local food truck just hours before they were murdered. Just before that, police now say the girls were at this local bar in town. And we now know investigators reviewed hours and hours of surveillance footage from that bar, Martha, and they have cameras both inside and outside. Also, Fox News learning this afternoon that investigators have also collected hours of video evidence from a nearby gas station that's only about a half a mile from the murder scene.
We've been trying to use those videos to garner new information. As you can imagine, there's hours and hours and hours of video, so it does take a lot of time.
Is it just me, or does this police chief all of a sudden have a different voice than he used to have? He started talking. I was like, is that the same guy? I haven't watched his video. I have it queued up for us to watch in a couple of minutes. I do want to watch through all of that and sort of have a little bit of a conversation with you, because, you know, I think it's important to go through it. So, but I was like, well, hearing his voice right now, I was like, what the heck? That does not sound like his voice. But there's some things by Brian Ensign I want to play before we get to that. I think it is important that we dive into it. Hey, Melissa, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. You too, blessed in Texas. You say we shop at Sprouts. I've been to Sprouts maybe 1 or 2 times, but you know what? I heard it was a good store. So that takes our super chats to 4, though, out of 21. Thanks, guys, for helping us get rolling today.
As police comb through that video from at least 2 local businesses, we're learning more about some of this other DNA evidence in that car they're looking for, Martha. And we know the front door of this home was left open, according to a neighbor, for hours before police were ever called. Martha?
That's an odd detail. Alexis, thank you very much. Boy, all of those families heading into this Christmas, just going through a very, very, very difficult time. And we do hope there's going to be some resolution and some movement in that case in the near future.
Whoever the web developer on Fox News, like little video thing, really needs to redesign it, because it's one of the worst I've ever seen. I hate the way that their web development video feature is. Like, it is terrible. Hey, Laura, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. Barbara, good to see you. Thank you for that. Really appreciate you guys. Okay.
We do have a lot of...
It has now been 1 month since 4 University of Idaho students were stabbed and brutally murdered in their off-campus house. Moscow, Idaho police releasing very little, still saying no suspect has been identified. But new Monday, police also said this in a recorded statement on YouTube.
We do have a lot of information, and we are specifically keeping that information safe. We're not releasing specific details because we do not want to compromise this investigation. It's what we must do. We owe that to the families, and we owe that to the victims.
The house where the murders happened remains a crime scene, roped off and guarded, as recently as Thursday night. News Nation cameras were there when plain-clothed investigators went into the house, spending about an hour inside.
I think there's a concern among the community, that there's this fear, and it's now been a month, that this could be becoming a cold case. Is that possible?
Absolutely not. This is not a cold case. And
Is it possible to becoming a cold case? And the information department leader says absolutely not. Meanwhile, we're a month in. There's no suspect. Seems like there's no evidence. You have no official weapon. We don't even know if you have a sheath to the weapon. You have no clues of what's happened. You're now a month in, just now grabbing footage from the gas station. And the public is sitting here like, is there any chance it's going to be a cold case? And she's just like, absolutely not. I don't think that she can say that with confidence. She needs to retract that statement and say, we're working really hard to make sure that it doesn't become a cold case. We've assigned this many officers and this many hours to it. Absolutely not. That just makes me not believe anything else that's going to come out of her mouth in the next 2 minutes in his interview. Why do they do that? Why can't they just be a little bit more honest with us? Because the chances of it becoming a cold case, honestly, to me, seem pretty high. It actually seems pretty high that it's going to become a cold case at this point in juncture and what's going on. Hey, Curse Diamond, you said, I ran across a post that contained a link to 3D views of the house. I posted in chat. Would you like me to send it? Yeah, if you post it in the chat, it's not going to go through because nobody's allowed to post links except for me and the mods. But yeah, email it to me. If it's a link to another channel, though, I mean, don't email it to me because I'm not going to play it. So unfortunately, we just don't do that here. But thank you so much, Curse Diamond, for your super chat. Hey, Allison, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. Thank you guys for your support. You tell me what you guys think. Do you think it's going to become a cold case? Put a 1 in the chat if you think, yes, it's going to be a cold case. Put 2 in the chat if you think absolutely not. Or put a 3 in the chat if you're like, I really hope it doesn't, but I think it might. Okay, I'm going to put a 3. Although I might also want to put a 1 because at this point I think it may become a cold case. But for her to so assuredly come out and say, absolutely not, that's blowing my mind. I mean, it literally blew my mind that she said that. She's like, absolutely not. Really? You're that confident?
That this could be becoming a cold case. Is that possible?
Absolutely not. This is not a cold case. And what you can see to show that is we have so many tips coming in. Over the weekend, we have essentially an army of experts and support from the FBI to go through all these tips, and the tips are valuable.
With the murders unsolved, a cloud hung over graduation at the University of Idaho over the weekend. Police told visitors to stay vigilant and travel in groups. Victim Kaylee Goncalves was
They didn't believe in traveling in groups the other night when they, on November 12th or 13th, early morning hours, when they stopped those teenagers and made, even though they were intoxicated, made them walk back home across the field by themselves. Now they're saying we've always believed in traveling in groups. I'm sorry to be so critical, guys. I just get really upset about the lack of protection of young people. Hey, Lead with Love, thank you for your super chat. What a blessing. That's number 9 on our goal to get to 21. You said, research extremist group, 2,000 members in Moscow, anti-female, subordinate them, pro-slavery, much worse leader, Douglas Wilson. I have no idea about this. I'm going to just jot down a little note so I can look it up. You always have great information, and I really appreciate it. So thank you so much, Lead with Love. I'll definitely check that out for sure.
was supposed to be one of the graduates.
It's been a tough few weeks for our community, and I want to acknowledge an enormous loss in our Vandal family recently. Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Maddie Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves were taken from us far too soon by a senseless act of violence.
And there was some speculation that investigators could be scaling back, that there were less detectives working on the case. Today, police tell me outright that is not true. They say that you have the same number of local and federal investigators on the case as they have for the last several weeks. Nicole?
Well, Brian, we know tips are pouring in. Are investigators any closer to figuring out more about who was inside of that white Hyundai?
It's a good question. They say they continue to look for the Hyundai Elantra. They're still going through tips from over the weekend. They haven't been through them all yet. But they say that Hyundai was in the area around the house where the murders happened, the house behind me. And new today, they explained that the people in the car may not even realize that they were near the house where this happened, or may not even realize that they saw something that could be important. But in the end, they believe what the people in that car saw could be very, very important to solving all of this, Nicole.
Hyundai Hyundai. I have no idea what they're saying. You know what I mean? I'm like, what the heck are they saying? They're saying Hyundai, 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 Hyundai. Kim C, thank you so much for that super sticker. What a blessing. Really appreciate you. Yeah. Okay, I got that 3D view of the house. I'm going to walk through it in just a second. It's not on another YouTube channel, so thank you for sending that. Okay, let me scroll through and just see what is going on today. It looks like Brian Inton, he says, back in Moscow, house where the murder happened is quiet today. We're expecting the town to be quieter this week after graduation and over the weekend. Yeah, it has to be to the point where the end of the semesters came and students are going home for Christmas break. So it should be a quiet little town for the next month, right? Man, there's been snow on the ground for a whole month there. I'm kind of glad personally that I don't live in Idaho. Okay. Brian Inton, quoting the Moscow police captain, says, we do have a lot of information. We are specifically keeping that information safe. We are not releasing specific details because we do not want to compromise this investigation. It is what we must do. We owe that to the families. We want more than just an arrest. We want a conviction. We owe that justice to Xana, Kaylee, Madison, and Ethan. You guys think that there's something he's saying in that sentence? Is he embedding into that sentence the idea that they have a person of interest, that they're not sharing who it is? So, because he said we want more than just an arrest. Well, does that make it sound like they have somebody that they could arrest at this point and they're keeping a close eye on them? And if that's the case, then it probably would lend to definitely be more of a targeted thing. I don't know. You guys tell me what you're thinking about this. Hey, Stacy, thank you for that super chat. You said they know a lot more than we do. I feel like they have a suspect, but they need to make sure that they can convict. Oh, that's exactly what we were just talking about. Talk about perfect timing on your super chat, which, by the way, is number 10 on our route to get to 21. I honor you and thank you so much. What a blessing you are for sending that in to us. I really appreciate it. And guys, I don't know what your theory of what happened was. I've sort of talked about it a couple of times, but I do think it's important that I'm able to deep dive into some of my theory of what I think happened. And every single day as information comes out, I feel like I'm more and more convinced on it. So as I was telling you guys, I was watching the Dr. Phil thing today. One of the things that they said on the Dr. Phil show today was that whoever would have been killed last would have had more of an opportunity to put up a fight because the knife would have been weaker and has lost some of its sharpness. And so the death wouldn't have been immediate and there would have been defensive wounds essentially. So my whole theory from the very beginning is that the killer went in through the sliding glass door with Kaylee as the target. I believe Kaylee was the target since the very beginning, partially based on intuition, partially based on the fact that they kept saying, did Kaylee have a stalker? Looking into if Kaylee had a stalker or not. And then it turns out, even after we had been saying that for a long time on this channel, not just me, but many, many, many people were saying that on this channel. Fox News, or not Fox News, News Nation and Brian Inton came out and confirmed during their special that very specifically Kaylee had more significant wounds than the other victims. And so I think the killer came in through the sliding glass door, went directly upstairs, tried to go into Kaylee's room. She wasn't there. So went into Maddie's room, saw that the both of them were in there together. And so then went to kill Kaylee, but had to kill Madison as well. Kaylee suffered much more significant wounds. Madison suffered, fatal wounds, but maybe not as significant as far as the depth or the torture of what took place. Signaling to us that Kaylee was the target and had deeper wounds. Meanwhile, Ethan hears what's going on. As the killer makes his way literally to the second level to leave the house, Ethan gets in the way and tries to prevent and stop what was happening. We see it in photographs where there's stools in front of the door, so there's likely some kind of tussle. I don't know people who just leave stools laying around on their floor. I think there was a fight that kind of ensued that took place, and he was trying to save the day. And then we know as a fact that Xana had defensive wounds. Her father had came out and said that. We know that Xana had defensive wounds. And so Since Xana had defensive wounds, it's likely that she was the fourth one killed, and that the knife was much weaker at that point. So, and then the killer snuck away, I think, back out the sliding glass door, unaware that there was even two more sleeping on the first floor. And so, and I think that Ethan and Xana wouldn't had been killed unless Ethan. Again, this is my theory. You're welcome to your theory, and I'm not saying it's right. And if I'm wrong, I'll totally just go with whatever comes out when we get more information. But I think that Ethan and Xana were either crimes of opportunity or just needless casualties because you can't leave witnesses around. And so that's sort of my thought. I think it sort of went Kaylee and Madison first, Ethan and Xana second. So you guys tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your theory on what you think took place. Hey, Betty, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. Really appreciate your support of our channel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See what else Brian Ensign was saying. The Moscow, Idaho police say they're still looking for the white Hyundai Elantra. They believe the occupants may have seen something and not know they saw something, so they don't think that the individual driving the white Hyundai Elantra is the person who did this. So that's an interesting point. I do want to talk about the thing that was said. So here's the headline, and we'll break it down together. Idaho murder victim Kaylee Goncalves had big open wounds. Dad reveals as he calls the cops cowards. And so all day today, every news outlet has continued to report this and report this and report this and report this from historically really credible news outlets. I'm not talking about TMZ or other YouTube channels that do fake news. These are coming from legitimate news outlets with journalists who have bosses they report to and get fired if they're missing the mark on cases like this when they just make things up to get a click. And so then today, at some point, there was one single comment that somebody took a screenshot of that supposedly came from Steve Goncalves' daughter, Olivia. And it said, sorry, my dad didn't say that. He's not done any more interviews or whatever. And I thought that was really interesting because in the past, when Steve Goncalves wanted to rectify or clear up or change one of the things that he was saying, he would just go and do another interview. He wouldn't send his daughter on some social media post to make a comment. So I don't know if he said this or didn't say this or said it and then they're wishing that he didn't say this. So I don't know. I think we need to take it possibly with a grain of salt, which I don't even know what that phrase means because literally it doesn't make sense. But figuratively, as we say it, we know what that phrase means for us. But anyways, the Idaho murder victim, Kaylee Goncalves, had his big open wounds, dad reveals, and says the cops are cowards. And there you guys can see a picture of the house, kind of a funky shaped house. They're putting, there's a scene on, hopefully it's in this clip that I wanted to show you guys. I don't know why they didn't put black bags over the windows. It's the Idaho State Police forensics team taking pictures and looking at all kinds of stuff. Kind of creepy, right? Hanging a poster saying, hey, do you know any information? This person, I don't know who that person is, looks very upset. Does anybody know who that person is? This is the scene right here. This is an interesting scene right here. This police officer or detective is going to go in and out this door, mimicking what he thinks the criminal did. See? I thought this was one of the most interesting clips that we've seen. He's going in and out this door, mimicking what he believes the killer did. Boom. I find that fascinating. The father of one of the 4 murdered University of Idaho students described how the victims had big open gouges on their body from the sadistic male, all in quotes, sadistic male in quotes, who killed them while blasting the tight-lipped police as cowards. Do you guys think Steve Goncalves said this or not? Put a 1 in the chat if you think it was Steve Goncalves who said it, and put a 2 in the chat if you don't think he said this. Amy Heights, thank you so much for your super chat. You said, falsifying a quote is a crime. NTL News wouldn't, national news wouldn't risk that. Yeah, that's sort of what I was saying. Like, they're not going to just, in my opinion, just go making this stuff up. I mean, I could be wrong. They might have misheard, but I think that it's a real quote personally. And I think that for whatever reason, they're trying to scramble and get it corrected. Maybe like, man, we didn't mean to say that. It came across wrong or whatever. By the way, you're number 12 on our super chat train, trying to get to 21. If anybody wants to hop aboard, we'd love to have you guys. Okay, let's continue reading. Steve Goncalves, whose daughter Kaylee was among the murdered students in Moscow, Idaho, said coroner Kathy Mabbitt had revealed the chilling details when they spoke. She says, "Sir, I don't think stabs is the right word. It was like tears. Like this was a strong weapon, not like a stab." One thing that I thought of today as I was listening to them on the Dr. Phil show talk about this, it, it was an interesting little thought that I had. I'm like, what if it wasn't a knife? What if it was like a machete or a sword or something more potent or powerful than just a knife? Uh, I don't know what that thing could be, or an axe even. That's very sharp. It's like we keep going after knife, but could be, it doesn't necessarily have to be. Hey, Patty, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. I just wouldn't be surprised if it turns out to be a different weapon. So, anyways, she says, so essentially what's happening, I'll just say this. We know that the police, they came out and made a statement and said that they're not the ones telling Steve Goncalves this information. Well, we assumed that they weren't the ones telling Steve Goncalves this information because there was a moment where Steve Goncalves pretty clearly came out and said, I paid for that information. My, daughter went to university and came back in a box. And so whenever he said that, I had a little clue piece like ding, 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 ding. Okay, he got the information from either I think it was likely the funeral director. Some people were saying, no, he got it from the coroner. No, I don't think it was the coroner. I think he got that information from the funeral director by the way that he said that. And so the thing that he's saying in this interview, he was saying that that coroner or funeral director, whoever it was that gave him that information, says, "Sir, I don't think stab's the right words. It's more like there's tears in her body. This is a strong weapon. It's not a stab." So I think that that's really an interesting clue piece. Again, Steve Goncalves is the primary point of information for all of us, and for me, it's the most important piece of information because he's the one who's actually given us things that we can work with. Hey, OA Music, it's good to see you tonight. Neil Nelson, hope you're doing well. I'm happy to see you. Really appreciate you. And Carinza Carolee, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you guys. By the way, we do have an amazing membership program called the Feller Fam. It gives you access to our private Facebook group. If you join, we'd love to have you. All you got to do is click the join button. And we do an amazing job of having lots of interaction on that every single day. Steve goes on to say, she said these were big open gouges. She said it was quick. These weren't something where you were going to be able to call 911. They were not going to slowly bleed out. So that's in line. I mean, that lines up with facts, right? The fact of the matter is something that we had talked about in this case when they're talking about the most horrific crime scene that any of them have seen. That lines up exactly with that. They're not going to slowly bleed out. He also described how his beloved daughter's liver and lungs were slashed. Now I'm starting to think maybe this isn't him because why would he get this graphic unless he got really upset because he said, don't make me be an alpha. I don't want to have to do it. So maybe it was him. I don't know. And maybe their plan was to try to release this information and they come out and say that they didn't say it. I don't know. Kaylee was killed along with Madison and Xana and Ethan in the early morning hours of November 13th. The elder Goncalves said while his daughter was in bed with Mogan in their off-campus home, they were both killed. He said their injuries were not even close to matching. And if that's true, that they were not even close to matching, it's a clear indicator that one of them, likely Kaylee, is the victim. And if Kaylee's the victim, do you guys have a potential person of interest in this case? I still, this is just my personal ideology. I don't understand how the food truck guy was cleared so soon. I've never been able to understand that. I thought it was the fastest clearing of a human individual that was clearly stalking two young ladies that I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how they did it so fast. It's actually really frustrating. And so I'm very frustrated about that, especially since the alibi doesn't really make sense to me. He drove 5 hours at 3 in the morning to a cabin in the woods. No, that food truck guy with the hoodie on and the red Nike sign on his shoes, that's who I think needs to take a second look at. Other people have pointed to um, the young man who spoke at the funeral, which, by the way, they haven't came out and said that he was on a list of people that they're not looking at currently, which I found to be interesting. Another thing that I think is interesting that they didn't come out and say that they were looking at someone was the lawyer. And I know that makes a lot of people really frustrated whenever I say that. It's like, well, it's unfair to come out and talk about him. Well, if he didn't want to be talked about, he shouldn't have done 14 interviews. And then people are like, well, he said he didn't want to do those interviews. Guess who's in control of your mouth? You are. And so if he didn't want to do interviews, he just doesn't have to talk. It's as simple as that. Simple as that. If you don't want to do an interview, don't come out and talk. That's all. So I find it really interesting. Kernodle, who was in a bed on another floor of the house with her boyfriend Chapin when they died, had defensive wounds and went through a hell of a battle to try to survive. The coroner apparently told Gonzalez. So again, guys, that little line there is confirming the theory that I have that Ethan and Xana were likely last on the list. Xana Kernodle had lots of defensive wounds. Police have yet to name a suspect or even the profile of the killer, but have revealed the victims were stabbed to death. They've also said the attack was targeted, but only loosely defined what they meant by that. The dad continued to blast the police Sunday in his interview with Fox, saying that they need to release more information to the public. Saying, I got outraged by them not just coming out and saying that this was a man, a woman, or a man, because they should know by the amount of strength it took to deliver their injury. So he's basically saying, yeah, that's why they are so certain when the family has came out and said it was a male. I was trying to understand that, guys. Like, why are they so certain that it was a male? And so this would be why. I said that last time. Like, okay, well, this is why. They're saying, based on the amount of strength it would have taken to deliver those injuries, it had to have been a male. So, okay, makes sense. By the way, guys, we're on number 16 of our super chat train, which means we're about 5 away, and we got about 5 minutes before we end our train for this time period. So we'd love to have you guys hop aboard. Also, guys, I joined a brand new app. And there's lots of other true crime creators on there. We would be more than happy to have you on there. Not just me, but the other true crime creators on there. And it's totally free. All you got to do is click the link, download it, go search for me. You'll find me. Go search for some of your other favorite true crime creators. They're on there. Follow them. It's an amazing app. And I've been posting throughout the case just when I have a thought. I've just been posting it, and then there's like today a big update in the Leilani and Quentin Simon case where Billy Joe was arrested. I want to be able to share that content like as I think about it on that page. So I would suggest you go follow it. Steve Goncalves goes on to say they're just being cowards. There are girls walking around the street right now that deserve to know they should be looking out for a sadistic male. Police have insisted that they can't disclose more information in order to protect the integrity of the investigation, but it has caused local panic. Authorities recently warned residents that the killer could strike again, and former Moscow police captain Paul Kwiatkowski interpreted the cops saying the attack was targeted as meaning the killer was known to their victims. He says when you use the word targeted, it means somewhere along the line we met. The retired officer added something that beep, someone off enough to go after these people. So someone made these people mad enough to go after them. So it makes sense. Hey Naomi, thank you for that super sticker. What an amazing blessing. Really appreciate you. One thing I do want to do, guys, is I do, and I know probably some of you guys have seen it, but I do want to go over the Moscow Police Department's release today. They released it on their YouTube channel. So by the way, how are you guys doing today? Are you having a good day? Boom.
On the Idaho murders and that tragic death of those 4 students in Moscow, Idaho. Police continuing to sort tips in this unsolved case. It was a month ago yesterday that the killings happened in this unsolved case. Police still working to determine who killed the 4 college students, Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Kaylee Goncalves, and Madison Mogan, while they were sleeping in their off-campus home between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. on November 13th. Part of the crime scene preservation, Idaho investigators bagged the victims' hands in an effort to possibly save clues before moving their bodies out of the crime scene. Of course, following all the information here on Live Now from Fox, we're getting an update today out of Idaho, including from a police captain, as they're continuing to sort tips about this ongoing unsolved investigation that at this point has no suspect and also no murder weapons.
Good morning. My name is Roger Lanier. I'm a captain with the Moscow Police Department. I'm in charge.
Okay, so it's not the chief. I was like, that dude has a way different voice. And I guess they don't really look the same either, but I wasn't thinking about that.
Of the operation.
I wonder why the police information officer is not the one doing this.
Division. And today is December 12th, Monday. And I want to give you an update on the King Road homicide investigations, at least the information that we have to this point. Over the weekend, investigators still continued to sort through numerous tips, calls, and online tips in regard to this investigation. There's been a lot of questions about the white car that we've been interested in. We're looking for that car because we believe through our investigation that that car was in the area during the time of the murders. And we also believe that the occupant or occupants may have seen something. They may not know they have seen something. So we specifically want to talk to them, and we want to know who they are and what they might know or might be able to contribute to the investigation. Over the weekend, investigators have sorted through and prioritized numerous tips. Some are tips that came in earlier and we've been working on. Other tips are new and are relevant. It's overwhelming sometimes with the amount of information that comes in on these tip lines. So our analysts have spent hours sorting through and trying to come up with the most relevant tips first for the investigators to follow up on. They have re-interviewed some of the folks we've interviewed earlier in this investigation to clarify information. Sometimes when new information comes forward, the people that we've spoken to beforehand may have new insight on that.
By the way, they also found a glove yesterday, and as soon as this interview is over, I'm going to share that story with you because I think it's really, really important. And then there's a brand new podcast that came out by Joseph Scott Morgan today as well. He's been on a lot of these shows talking about everything that's going on. I want to play that for you and unpack it. together. And then don't forget, I have those clips from the Dr. Phil show that towards the end of the stream, we're going to be playing and unpacking together. So guys, we got a lot of things to dive into tonight. Don't go anywhere. We got the good stuff is just coming around the bend here on this stream tonight. And if we have enough time, I might open it up for a couple calls just to hear what you guys' theories are. That will depend on the time. Joan, thank you so much. That's the biggest super chat of the day. I really appreciate it. It's number 18 on our route to 21 also. And you said, Tyler, Merry Early Christmas. Thank you for all you do. And thanks for being a great pastor and friend. Buy yourself something nice. Well, that is just unbelievably kind of you, Joan Slay. Thank you so much for your support. And we love you around here. Thank you so much. Hey, Naomi, thank you for that too. What a blessing.
So it does often seem like we're backtracking, but we're really just trying to get the most important details and the best timeline that we can come up with. We have literally an army of analysts who have been sorting through videos that have been submitted through the FBI.gov Moscow upload site. Those videos are from all over town, gas stations, and specifically the area around King Road. We've been trying to use those videos to garner new information. As you can imagine, there's hours and hours and hours of videos, so it does take a lot of time. I want to talk a minute.
I bet I could get through that video pretty quickly if they shared it with me. It wouldn't take me very long to work my way through it. Hey, John, thank you for your super chat. You said the more that is revealed, and specifically body cam showing people running and headlights by house via body cam indicate that there are witnesses. Yeah, I agree. The more that we look at that, I mean, there's 4 people at least, if not 5, running by the body cam. And then there's at least a couple witnesses. And then today, they, one of the things that they came out and said that I think was really interesting today, they said that there was between 3 and 4 a.m. when this took place. Well, the police were standing not that far from the house between 3 and 3:20 a.m. And did the police still sit there at 3:20 a.m. when they sent these young men on their way, or did they get in their car and drive off? So I don't know. You guys tell me what you think about that. But thank you for your super chat. I think it's a really interesting perspective and an interesting point.
Minute about safety. There's been a lot of speculation about what is the safety to the public right now, or the risk to the public right now. I would just like to add that we should always be vigilant. Certainly we should be vigilant now, but we should make that a way of life for us. We should always be walking with our head up, sticking to lighted paths, and walking in groups if we can. And in addition, letting people know when you've arrived home if you have not made prior arrangements. This is not an indication of a specific elevated risk, but something that we should be vigilant with just in our daily lives. I want to let everybody know that we are still 100% committed to solving this crime. There's a lot of information to sort through, and the information keeps coming in. And not all of the information is relevant, but you don't know if a tip is valid until you take the time to examine that tip and see how it relates to other information that you might have. We have teams in Moscow, Salt Lake City, and in Virginia, as well as other locations across the country. And we're prepared to do interviews and follow up on information at any point, anywhere. The ISP and FBI investigators, along with the Moscow Police Department investigators, includes dozens of analysts, tip line operators, and others, and they're working around the clock, 7 days a week to sort through the volumes of information. MPD has detectives, support personnel, and a communications team to try to keep everything together, but it is still a daunting task. The FBI, their investigators are ready at a moment's notice at any place in the country to go conduct an interview should the tips and leads take us there.
I wish the FBI was the lead investigators on this case, and the update that we were getting were from them instead of from Moscow. And nothing against Moscow. I think that they're probably really amazing people, but in large part lack experience when it comes to investigating a quadruple homicide. When's the last time there was a quadruple homicide? Probably forever ago, because there wasn't even a murder since 2015. So the fact that they're investigating a quadruple homicide, it feels like they're a little out of their depth. It's like, are they in the little league when it comes to experience? And then the FBI is someone who does this on a daily basis. If that's the case, then come on, let them have more of a say. And you know what, I don't know what's going on. I know the FBI is super involved, and maybe the FBI really is taking a bigger role than what we realize.
And the Idaho State Police has, besides working on the investigation, had several uniformed troopers in the area to help with safety concerns around the city and on the University of Idaho campus. And just a quick reminder, please stick to official news releases for information. Tracking down rumors and quelling rumors about specific individuals or specific events that may or may not have happened is a huge distraction for investigators.
Is he talking about a certain YouTube channel that's making up false narratives and downloading screams off of the internet and breathing over them and trying to pass them off as real evidence? Because that's one of the most despicable things that I've ever seen take place. Although that same individual did the very same thing during the Gabby Petito case. Ridiculous. That type of behavior shouldn't be permitted on YouTube.
And oftentimes is the result of social media propagation, and it is very, very frustrating to investigators and hard to stay on track. Finally, I just want to add that we do have a lot of information, and we are specifically keeping that information safe. We're not releasing specific details because we do not want to compromise this investigation. It's what we must do. We owe that to the families, and we owe that to the victims. We want more than just an arrest. We want a conviction. We owe that just.
When he says that little line that he just said just then, we want more than an arrest. We want a conviction. Does that make any of you think that they know who did this? Let me know. Does that make any of you think that they know who did this?
Justice to Xana, Kaylee, Madison, and Ethan. And finally, I would just like to remind anybody with information, you can call the tip line at 208-883-7180. And that is directly to the tip line office in the FBI. There's been some frustration about having to wade through the tip line, but remember, this is not the only investigation in the country. So please be patient. We want that information. Anything could break this open for us. And then also the email tip line is tipline@ci.moscow.id.us. Thank you for your continued patience.
I don't have continued patience. Don't be thanking me for my patience. I don't have any patience. Puzzle continues. Mystery of Idaho college murders deepen as glove is found outside the Moscow home. So right there, former homicide detective Chris McDonough said he found a glove outside the Moscow house in late November. I want to know the type of glove it is. Is it possibly involved? And what the heck was Chris McDonough doing there? Why is he in every single thing that we talk about? I don't understand. Why is he part of the Leilani Simon case? Why is he picking up gloves on the crime scene here? I don't understand. He said, I actually found a glove. I pointed it out to an officer who was there securing the scene. They came and collected it. The officer that was there, obviously, they didn't know about it because he came over and photographed it, and they came and got it. It's a single black glove found close to the rental home. It is understood to have been discovered within the crime scene. The glove sparked a slew of new theories online. One internet sleuth called it crazy. I don't know. I've been in plenty of environments that are cold outside and there's gloves laying on the ground, especially like around this. So I don't totally understand. You guys will have to tell me if finding that glove is a big deal or not. I don't know. I want to just take a quick peek upstairs in this house, guys, because there's been some conversation about the cabinet situation. So I really went into the kitchen, hallway, kitchen. Huh. I'm not I'm not more or less resolved on what I was thinking about. So I'm sure many of you guys have seen this before, so we don't need to spend too much time on it. But I think that's the door the person came in and at. So okay, guys, Joseph Scott Morgan came out with a brand new episode, and I just want to go over it with you, as I think it's going to be an interesting episode for us to talk about. And so, very, very interesting.
Personality. What's your vibe? Do you work in Rhode Island and Vermont?
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. One of my favorite music artists is Tom Petty, God rest his soul, and one of my favorite songs that he came up with years ago is called The Waiting. And in that line, it famously says, the waiting is the hardest part. Right now, I would say that the waiting is the most important part. Today, we're going to continue our discussion on the quadruple homicide at the University of Idaho. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
Body Bags. What a weird name, in my opinion, of a podcast.
Jackie Howard, executive producer with Nancy Grace Crime Stories, my good friend, my partner. Jackie, we have been waiting. I think the whole country's waiting. They're sitting around, they're wondering what in the world is going on. Where's this case going? And day by day, we watch the news. We listen and we wait. And every now and then, there'll be a bit of a trickle that comes out.
Let's start with the latest news in the search for a killer of 4 University of Idaho students. Police have said they are looking for a white Hyundai. Now, they have not said that they think this person is a person of interest, a suspect, or just a witness. They have said that they believe the car was in the vicinity at the time. So, number one, what forensics are they going to do to find the car? And number two, why do you think they are looking for this car?
I'm a professor as well, at a university. I teach at Jacksonville State. One thing I do know is that at the beginning of every year, when the kids come back from summer break and whatnot, we have to go over to security. We have to go in and we take our registration with us for our vehicles and we hand it to them. And you know what they give us? They give us a sticker. They give us a sticker that goes on the inner portion of our windshield. Now let's think about the population of this location.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was saying. Like, you got to register your vehicle. I'm glad that he's pointing it out. I absolutely think that we need to be doing that. Cheryl says the guy talking is one of the best forensics professors in the entire country. So, yeah. And also, would you guys mind typing what your list of suspects are? It'd be really important for me. I just trying to track with people and what they're thinking and sort of catch the zeitgeist of it all from what you might be able to tell me in the chat, because you guys are very smart. A lot of you have really good ideas about what's going on in this case, and I really appreciate hearing from you about what you think is happening. So
it's roughly, I think it's roughly upwards of 20,000. Most people that are in that town are going to be associated with the University of Idaho. Maybe not most, but a significant portion. And that means that they'll be required to have parking pass on their car. And universities are different than other locales. So I would think that the investigators, the first stop that they're going to make relative to this car that they're interested in, is they're going to go to the registration area at the university. And they're going to say, hey, we want to look through the logs here. We want to take a look and see if we can cross-check just in the immediate right now to see if there are any vehicles that belong to anyone on this campus, whether staff members, faculty, or students. We want to know. We want to know. And automatically, if you can get a hit with that kind of proximity, it narrows your field now Look, this information has gone out, as they used to say, over the wire at this point. It's nationwide. It's worldwide at this point. And I think everybody and their brother's looking for a white vehicle like this. You remember when the DC sniper hit all those years ago, what were they looking for? They were looking for a white van, where they saw everybody was looking for a white van. And now the next generation is this white four-door that they've got their eye on. The other portion of this is they're going to look through the state files, through the vehicle registrations in Idaho and probably Oregon and certainly Washington. There's a real close in this particular geographic region. I don't know if a lot of people understand, or because it's not a location a lot of people have been to. This area up in the Panhandle portion of Idaho, they closely associate themselves with that area over in eastern Washington. As a matter of fact, friends of mine that are up there have said that the town is actually very close to Pullman, Washington, which is where Washington State University is, and it's not that great a distance. So they're going to look for vehicles that are within that geographic region just to start off with, and that's a hefty undertaking, because there are a lot of these vehicles that are out there similar to this. They're going to have to go through, but they do have specific year model numbers, which is kind of interesting.
I do think that's kind of interesting as well. Hey, by the way, guys, I have this amazing painting that I did. If anybody's interested in it, if you want to purchase it, I got a beautiful white frame for it. Email me, press@tylerfeller.com, and make me an offer. I can't refuse. For not to me, but for a donation to our ministry. And then I would love to send that to you if you're interested in it. And some of you guys may be needing to make a donation to a nonprofit at this time of the year anyways. So we'd be glad to help facilitate that if you're interested in that painting. Amy, thank you for helping us start a brand new super sticker train. Thank you, Donna, for that. Really appreciate it. Trying to get to 23. You guys are 1 and 2. Thank you guys for helping us out. I wonder if there's a way. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit because he's talking pretty slow. And see if 1.5 is too fast, then I'll slow it to 1.25.
Because they've identified something visually on the car that would put it within that category of vehicle, where it's some feature on that car. And I think it's like a 2-year block that they're looking at that is unique to that particular model that sets it apart. I'm wondering if whatever it was that keyed the investigators in on this, if it was a camera image or if it was someone that was giving them a verbal description of the vehicle they'd seen in the area, if it's something that the investigators cued in on that makes that vehicle unique. And of course, when we think about forensics, one of the things we always think about that Jackie, you and I have talked about is the term individualization. And that's the key to all evidence and understanding evidence, is the individualization of that evidence. And so that you can tie it back to a specific item or person or time or place. So they've got the road hot right now. They're looking for this vehicle. And I don't know what it means. My first part, I think, of this is to think, well, maybe somebody was driving by in a vehicle, this type of vehicle, and they may have seen something at that time. Or if we go back in time, the day after, and we had those images that arose out of the scene where they were taking measurements out in that roadway of those skid marks on the road, that dark rubber that had been laid down. I'm wondering if they're thinking that maybe that car generated that. I think that that's something certainly to consider. The media certainly made hay over at that particular time. And if that's the case, then you might have, if they did a lift on the rubber that was left behind in that burned area on the road, if they had a rubber sample, that might give an indication to manufacture the tires even. There's a lot to consider with this vehicle. And if the vehicle was involved, and I'm not saying it was, but if it was in fact involved in the slaughter, because that's what this was, then there could very well be a lot of biological evidence contained within the cabin of that car.
So if they find the car, they're certainly going to process it just like it was a murder scene. So they're going to take swabs on the inside, looking for fingerprints, look for DNA to see if possibly one of the victims were in that car. Officers would be looking for blood if indeed this is a suspect. But if it's not a suspect, and it's just they think this person might have some knowledge of that area at that time, will they still process the car as if it were a crime scene?
I think it would be advisable if they believe that vehicle was in proximity to this horrific event. If they don't go ahead and document it now and do it as thoroughly as they possibly can, that's a lost moment. I mean, it truly is. You have to, when you're working a death investigation, what's our guiding principle? Our guiding principle relative to deaths is that every death is a homicide until proven otherwise. Well, if you extend that line of logic into this vehicle, it's going to be swabbed every square inch of the unaided eye and the aided eyes.
All while making sure each trim has enough room to hold space for your green Hyundai Tucson. The 2023 Tucson plug-in hybrid is only sold in
right now.
I wanted to skip forward a little bit because he's just talking about the car. It wasn't super exciting. Hey, Junebug, thank you for that. Patty, thank you for hopping aboard. Joan Slay, thank you. I really appreciate you. Thank you for hopping aboard. You too, Lanny. It's good to see you. Thank you guys for your support today. I want to hear about the DNA evidence and what's going on with that.
Cops are not reading a first grade reader. They're reading War and Peace. The volume of evidence that has been collected from this scene is daunting, and it's dense, very dense, and it's layered. And that's specifically what they're looking at right now.
So you're telling me that is the reason why it is taking so long to get any evidence or any information back from the blood, that evidence that was taken, the fiber evidence that we know that they took. They covered 2 floors, actually 3 if they were doing their job, even though no one was harmed on the first floor. So you're telling me basically there is so much evidence, astronomical numbers, to go through, and to be thorough, it's going to take a lot of time.
That's precisely what I'm saying, Jackie. I think that any of us would rather these professionals take their time. They're not on the clock. They're not on the media's clock. They're not on the public's clock. They're on their clock. They're on their clock, and science dictates the movement of the clock. And there are certain things that cannot be rushed. I'm constantly asked this question about why is it taking this long and how long does it take? Well, there's not a specific formula that you can apply to that, because it all depends on what you're talking about. If you just take the bite,
Yeah, but how many of us agree that they take too long? I mean, seriously, it feels like they got to send it through 14 different layers of processing, and then they put it out one little tiny information for people on the internet, and instantly we're able to see what they could not see. And so I'm sorry if the vast majority of the public do not understand why people who are working in forensic labs or as detectives on crime scenes take so long, because every time something's released to the public, within a matter of minutes, if not faster, we're able to find exact information. It's like, release the raw data of all the cell phone data, we'll figure it out. I guarantee you that. Release the raw data of everything you know about every Hyundai Elantra in Latah County that night based on Hyundai's, information that they are able to track their cars with. Release all of the information that they have regarding the types of evidence that they collected. I guarantee you we'll get down to the bottom of it. And every time that they release even a tiny piece of information, we're able to figure out things that hadn't previously been figured out before. Even with the body cam footage of what we watched last night, which, by the way, is so ridiculous to me, the way that those law enforcement officers were treating those young people. I do not agree with what those young people are doing. I don't think that they should be drinking underage. However, they weren't driving. Okay. And on top of that, last time I checked, whenever somebody is yelling at you in the middle of the night at 3 a.m, especially when everyone you've been around has been drinking and they're pretending to be a police officer and they're dressed in plain clothing, you really shouldn't turn around and run towards them. And then they get reprimanded for that when there's police officers driving a plain vehicle that has no indication that belongs to law enforcement. And when they're dressed in plain clothing and then they get in trouble because they didn't come to them. And he's like, well, next time we're out here and you hear somebody say they're a police officer, you need to come towards them. No. Does anybody remember the Uvalde shooting where the young man, we don't even want to say his name because he doesn't deserve any type of attention, was banging on the classroom doors? Does anybody remember what he was trying to be? A police officer. Okay. And so I think it's about the most ridiculous thing that I've ever seen. But aside from that, they released that information to us, the wonderful community of contributors that exist here on the internet. We deep dove into it and we saw 4 people walking by. Do those 4 people happen to know anything? We have 20 minutes of the 60 minutes that something took place on footage with police officers standing outside of the house. So we have 1/3 of the time that they think something took place on footage. 1/3 of the time. because there's only they now are saying they think it took place between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. Well, if they think it took place between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. and we have access to cameras and footage between 3 a.m. and 3:20 a.m. or really 2:45 a.m. and 3:15 a.m., then we should have all kinds of information that we can unpack. And sure enough, when we get the footage, we see 4 or 5 people walking by in the background. We see a light that looks like it was switched off, and there was a lamp that they went and turned off. So I'm just saying that the fact that they're holding on to this information and the fact that they have 1,000 pieces of evidence, that there are 4,000 photographs and 130 pieces of physical evidence that they're afraid to tell us what it is, the fact that they can't tell us why certain people are released based on whatever reason they think that they had nothing to do with this is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion, because I really believe this in my heart, that we would do a better job of getting down to the bottom of what's happening. I actually believe that. I believe you and I, the amazing people of this channel, the amazing web sleuths that are guided and directed oftentimes on this channel by the power of the Holy Spirit, because a lot of us are Christians and that's the way that we think. Because the Bible teaches us we can ask for remarkable secrets of things not yet known and haven't received to us. I believe that there are people who do that. We actually seen that in the Jolissa Fuentes case. The police officer prayed and felt like the Lord told him where she was at, and then he found her. I think that's unbelievable. And so I believe in that. I believe in the average citizen's ability to take information and process it, even in the natural, and be able to get down to solutions. There's like 2,500 people watching right now. Imagine if the 2,500 people right now were each given just a little piece of information. I guarantee you 2,500 of us watching right now could unpack information that's taken them a million years to unpack. Guarantee you that. Guarantee you that. They have 45 FBI officers assigned. Well, there's 25 of us here right now. So let us have a little take at it. And I guarantee you we'll get the ball down further. I guarantee it. Certainly, there's some things that they can release that wouldn't compromise the investigation. There are certainly things that they can release that wouldn't compromise the investigation. For example, I think they should be able to tell us, well, we did geofencing on cell phone data, and there were 14 phones moving at this time, and 7 of them were iPhones and 7 of them were Androids. That would be helpful. We can know that. They should probably know that within a radius. They should be able to figure out how many people were using phones at that time. That would be a little clue piece. I don't know, guys. I'm just the type of person who wants to get down to the bottom of what's going on, as I'm sure you do as well. And so thank you for entertaining my little rant today. Really appreciate it. And by the way, if you guys want to support the channel, hit the like button. That's the best way that you could help us out, and it's totally free. But other ways that you can support, if you're feeling generous today, if you're in the Christmas spirit, you can support through PayPal or Cash App, which is $ Tyler Feller 22, which, by the way, is the most amazing way to support because there's no fees at all, or Venmo at Tyler-Feller. We also have a super sticker train going, trying to get to 23 people on the super sticker train, and we only have 6, so we need about 17 more. And so I would really appreciate it. And you don't have to. You don't have to support if you don't want to. But if you feel like you should, if you feel like you're getting value from this channel, if you want to support ministry and things that we do here, we'd love for you to support. It'd be a major blessing to us.
Paint the picture here. If we want to consider how, I used the term dense just a second ago. If you want to take just the biological evidence alone, and when I say that, I'm specifically talking about blood and DNA. Yes, it is a bloody scene. I think that most people could probably agree on it. Even without seeing the scene, it's going to be a bloody scene because you've got 4 individuals that have sustained horrible sharp force injuries to their chest. Okay. And there's all kinds of things that come along with that. First off, you're burying this knife into the lungs, the heart. There's not just a chance that they're going to bleed out. There's a chance they're going to aspirate, blow out fine particulate bits of blood and tissue. All of that's going to be there. Okay. Then you begin to think about just print evidence alone. So many people have passed through this house, and I'm not talking about police officers that are working the scene. I'm talking about this has been identified as a gathering spot for people off campus. People don't come to gathering spots wearing latex gloves. It doesn't happen. Okay. So they're going to show up, and if they're partying, they're holding, I don't know, a plastic cup with a drink in it. They're sitting it down. Maybe they're resting their hand adjacent to the drink on the counter. If it's a smooth, non-porous surface, you can pick up on prints. They're probably overlay prints where you've got people that have placed their hands there, and then sometime later somebody else comes along and places their hand there. You're not talking about an environment where you've got essentially a pristine environment where you only have, say, like an elderly retired couple living there where they have no one that visits them. We're talking about a very dynamic environment that the kids in that school knew about, and that the people within the residence had friends of friends of friends that were probably visiting there, and they might just pop over. They might just show up spontaneously, and a party would erupt, or they're going to hang around and watch a ball game together, or they're going to dance, or they're going to study together, or do whatever it is that they're doing in this apartment together. So you've got this layering of just fingerprints alone. Think about how much hair has been shed in this environment. Everybody that loses hair, and we all lose hair. Just look at your brush if you don't believe it, that you brush your hair with. You look at it and you've got strands of hair all in it. Well, the brush didn't necessarily pull that hair. You were shedding that hair anyway. It happened to be caught up in that brush. How much more hair is just laying around this environment? Then you think about touch DNA, your sloughing skin cells. That's all over the place. What if somebody sneezes? That's all over the place. What about people that are tracking in dirt? I looked at the parking pad out back, and it's this fine, almost powder-like layer of, it's smaller than pea gravel that's covering that parking pad. Well, every time somebody steps out of their vehicle, that surface transfers to the soles of their shoes, and they track that in the house. Well, how are you going to separate that out from the old versus the new? So you've got any number of different types of trace evidence that are going to be there, in addition to all the other evidence that things that have been left behind over a period of time that may have been originated items, that sort of thing, from other locales that you can't necessarily verify their origin, their point of origin. But at the end of the day, it makes up the totality of that scene. And it really causes me to breathe shallow, as they say, when you begin to think about how much work there is involved in that. And that's the reason that I think the governor of the state of Idaho understood this. I think he, if I'm not mistaken, I think he pushed forward like almost $1 million in emergency funds just to work on this case alone. They have an understanding of this. They understand what they're up against.
Well, they needed the whole $1 million and probably then some to allocate funds and resources to be able to attack this appropriately, at least the way that I think. By the way, how are you guys doing tonight? I hope you're doing well. Hopefully you're enjoying the content to the best of your ability tonight. And gosh, as we're continuing to unpack everything that's going on, one of the other news articles from ABC News was saying that there's an army of analysts combing through videos submitted to the FBI, which is interesting. Other clue piece, right? Police investigators are trying to unpack the mysterious murders, and there's an army of analysts combing through videos submitted on the FBI tip website, and those videos are coming from all over the place, all over town. And as you can imagine, that hours and hours and hours of video, it takes a lot of time. I just wonder if there's ever going to be a time where I know it sounds like maybe not the best idea, but what if there was a crime that they just tested an experiment out and said, all right, let's do something where we allow the crowd to try to solve the crime, and they release everything. They release everything. So they just put it all like on a Dropbox folder, and everybody has access to every single thing you could possibly see. I think that'd be really interesting. It'd be a really interesting piece of information, because right now there's analysts, an army of analysts going after it. They said there's hours and hours and hours of video, so it takes a lot of time. Well, we know from previous numbers, about 22 of them were on site working with detectives in Moscow, and then another 23 of them from the FBI were working off-site. And so when they say army of analysts, I wonder how many an army is. Dr. Lisa, it's really good to see you. I hope you are doing well. You said thank goodness for that army. Yeah, major time, big time. That's exactly what I'm saying. Thank goodness for that army, and hopefully they really mean army. I mean, like, how big is an army? Let me type it in. How big is an army? Because an army, you know what I mean? I think an army is at least 100,000 from what I'm looking at. So a corps is 20,000 to 60,000, and a division is 6,000 to 25,000. So if you say army, that word means at least 100,000. A platoon is about 26 people. A patrol is about 12 to 24. A squad, 6 to 12, or a team or crew is 2 to 4. A brigade is 3 to 5,000. A regiment is 1 to 3,000. A battalion is 300 to 1,000. There's all these different words, but it doesn't become an army until 100,000. So it'd be interesting if they literally mean army, which I doubt it, but they had 100,000 people combing through it, which they easily could if they released it publicly. But thank you, Dr. Lisa, for that super chat. By the way, that takes us to number 7 out of 23 on our super sticker train. You know what, guys? We only need 16 more to reach our goal. I wonder if there's 16 of you guys that want to hop aboard our super sticker train just as a way to support the channel today. I love listening to Joseph Scott Morgan, one of the world's leading experts on forensics, and was today on the Dr. Phil program talking about this case. Had some good insight that made me think a little bit differently about the case. And he released this podcast fresh today. And so you might be wondering, why are we taking our time listening to this? Well, I wanted to take a second to listen to this because the things that he's saying, I think, are very important because there are things that I think we need to get down to the bottom of. And so let's listen to what he's saying.
And there's a lot of people burning the midnight oil on it.
You mentioned, Joe, the blood evidence. And if we look at this realistically, if we look at life and the things that we do and what goes on in your world, we have 5 women living in this house. So there's going to be a lot more biological evidence than just the blood that was found.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look, we're all adults here. We have to consider this. You've got 5 premenopausal, obviously, young ladies that are living in this house. There's high probability that they're experiencing menses on a regular basis. All of that's going to be contained. That remnant will be contained in the bathrooms. Not to mention, if they have girlfriends that are coming over there, you have the same deposit that will be taking place. If anybody's sick, for instance, they could have mucus coming out of their noses. People living in close quarters with one another, this sort of thing, they all pass around some kind of virus, and they've got runny noses, and they're throwing away tissues. You hear about stories where people are collecting bits of, say, DNA matter and that sort of thing from discarded trash. Well, they have discarded trash in this place. Did you happen to look in the window? Those images they had just on one table alone, it looked like a typical place where college kids live. There were partially consumed foodstuffs. You had cups that were there that were not in the sink to be washed. They were just sitting on the table. This is a house that had been lived in.
You also can't negate the fact that you are probably going to find semen.
You absolutely would find semen in this environment. If any of these young ladies are involved in a romantic physical relationship with someone, there would be seminal deposit, you would think, more than likely in the bedrooms, on the surfaces of the mattresses, this sort of thing. And that has to be taken into account too. So, what do you do as an investigator? You collect that sample, and you would want to, say, for instance, run it first off to see if the individual was a secretor. And that's kind of one of the tests that's done. You look for any kind of, if you have ejaculate, you look to see if there are actually red blood cells in there, to see if they did secrete. That's a specific identifier. And then semen is evidence rich relative to DNA sample. You would want to see if you can develop a profile on that semen. It doesn't necessarily mean that sample is associated directly with a crime. However, it is a deposit of DNA, and you have to run the test. If you find something that's...
Sorry, guys, I didn't expect him to get so graphic about all that. Hey, Tina, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
It's unidentified, they have to run it and see if they can develop a profile off of it. Because right now, as it stands right now, and as we have heard the chief of police say, they don't have a suspect. Now that's all going to change. At some point in time, they'll say we have person of interest or we have a suspect. But to this point, they're not saying that. So every possibility is on the table at this point.
How many tests are conducted on each piece of evidence that comes out? I mean, is it just like blood? You say, okay, this blood type, and it's only this person. Or are there other tests that would be run on each piece of evidence?
It's kind of like building a house. You're going to bring the tools that are necessary to build a house, all right? And every tool has a specific purpose. So it all depends on what they're trying to achieve, what data they're attempting to collect. If they're going to examine for latent prints, let's just say, there are certain tests that they can run. If they can appreciate a latent print that appears to be very fragile, and they knew that if they applied fingerprint dust to it, they might want to superglue fume that item, for instance, okay? And that way the image of that print will be captured in that space and it'll be frozen in time. It ceases to be fragile at that point in time. Same applies with DNA. If you only have a partial strand of DNA, if you're thinking about a short tandem repeat SDR, only got a portion of the strand of DNA, there is kind of a modeling that goes on with that test where you're having to replicate strand to try to develop on 13 different points along the strand of the DNA. Whereas if you have a complete strand of DNA where you have an intact molecule, then they can run this and develop a profile off of it. So it all depends on the status of the evidence that they collect, how robust it is, how intact it is. And we could get off into hair comparisons, and there will be hair at the scene. And that's something that you would do under a comparison microscope, for instance, if you have a known sample.
The reason I think that they have DNA more than anything else is the fact that lawyer guy, the third-year law student, and Jeremy Reagan that did all the interviews, and then people were upset that we were talking about him. I'm like, you can't be upset. He's the one who went and did 42 interviews, including going on Banfield and everywhere else. Anyways, that guy said that he submitted DNA. Well, there's no reason he should be submitting DNA unless they have DNA to compare it to, right? And so there's just little clue pieces like that came out that I think are really important for us to acknowledge. And so I think that they likely have the suspect's DNA. and maybe they're just trying to pin it down. I don't know. Naomi, thank you for that. Heaven, thank you for that. That takes us to 10 out of 23 on our super sticker train, which means we just need 13 more. I'm wondering if we get 13 more in the next 13 minutes. That'd be a major blessing.
Sample of hair, for instance, from one of the victims, and you have an unknown that's found immediately adjacent, they can do what's called the gross examination on the hair, and that means that they compare it by viewing it. You're not necessarily doing a chemical test on it, you're doing a visual test on it to see if these two hairs match up, if you think that their point of origin is from the same location. And they'll try to determine that with a reasonable level of scientific validity. For every item that's there, it might require a specific type of test. And again, that's why it's quite interesting, I think, at least from a scientific standpoint, that many times the more data you have, the more complex the case becomes. You're drowning, you're awash, if you will, in evidence testing. And I can only imagine these people that are doing this work sometimes feel like, they are drowning in evidence, but you have to work the evidence and work your way through it, because once you get those results back, that's the point in time when you push it out to the investigators. You're not going to push it out to them prior to the test being completed. They've said famously, I think earlier this week, in regards to this, they're starting to get results back from the lab. They didn't say what those results were. They didn't even say what the tests were. They just said they're starting to get results back. Well, what does that mean? It can mean anything. We found a print. Well, that's a result. You found a print. Did you identify who the print belonged to? No, but we found a print. So, or we did in fact we determined the type of blood that was at the scene. Well, whose blood is it? I don't know, but it is a type of blood. And so you can have results that are coming back, and you're not necessarily going to have more information than you previously did that's going to lead you to who perpetrated the crime.
So when you have the evidence and tests have been conducted, you have said multiple tests on some samples. At what point is that sample destroyed so that no more tests can be conducted?
It's at the point where, particularly when you're talking about items like, say, for instance, if we've got blood evidence that's presenting on a shirt, okay, or on a piece of cloth, for instance, where you've either got transfer or you've got some kind of dynamic event that has caused a blood pattern to appear on the item itself. In order to appreciate that, say, per lighting, you can illuminate, and you'll have to apply a particular type of agent to that shirt to make it luminesce. Well, once you do that, you kind of compromise the DNA, okay, that might be contained therein on the surface of that. Or if you're collecting, say you're having to cut an item up like a piece of cloth or item of clothing, once that has been submitted, they're only going to take a portion of that question sample of blood. Now, it all depends on how skilled the technician is in getting to that question sample and how much they're going to need in order to test. Now, you can take one droplet, for instance, of a question droplet and kind of trim off that area and apply it for testing, and then you still have some sample left. But if you're getting false positives, or depending upon what the test you're running is, you might have to go back to the well, if you will. And the more you kind of trim this thing off, the more you're diminishing the sample. And that is truly an example of destructive testing, which you never want to go down that far down the road. So they have to take care in what they're doing. And one of the most important things that happens with the testing of blood at these things where you have these commingled samples is to try to determine whose blood you actually have and trying to separate those items out. So if you have a sample, you're going to look for red blood cells, which to me always look like, microscopically, they always look like gigantic sliced beets, if you will.
Now we know what red blood cells look like. Hey, Ramblin' Red Rose, really appreciate you. You said, I enjoy your channel. God bless you. God bless you, Ramblin' Red Rose. My cousin's name is Rose, and she has red hair, so that's what makes me think of your name. Hey, thank you, 22 Beauty, for that super sticker. Really appreciate you. You guys helped us cross over the halfway mark, getting us to 12 out of our 23 super chat goal. Only a couple more of you guys, and we'll reach our goal for this hour. Would mean a lot. Thank you.
You see them. I guess that's one of the reasons I only do beats. But
I'm sorry, I was just picturing that.
Yeah, but you have these, and depending upon the markers that are contained on that red blood cell, they can determine the type of blood, and that type of blood type is what I'm saying. They know that can be assigned to a specific individual, and then with that, you begin to develop a DNA profile of the individual. But it's a matter of getting those types separated, because there's going to be a lot of commingled samples, and that's one of the fascinating things about utilizing the weapon that was used, because that action alone, if it was a single weapon, we still don't know that. All we know is that they have said a military style weapon, a Rambo style weapon, a hunting style weapon, K-bar, they've used that term.
Yeah, but Joe, it's been pointed out just in our conversations that just because it was a large weapon does not necessarily mean that it is a military type weapon. I mean, you have some pretty big butcher knives too.
I got to tell you, this is one of the issues that's really kind of confounded me, because they were very specific about it. And what's interesting is that this information wasn't sourced from the forensic pathologist. My understanding is that the genesis of that data point relative to the so-called military style knife, this arose from the media asking questions about what the police were looking for in stores. And according to the media, the police officers were going into stores saying, have you sold a military style knife? Well, police aren't qualified to determine based upon injuries, particularly those injuries that have not been cleaned yet, just what they saw at the scene. They're not qualified to make a diagnosis of what generated those injuries. So that leads me to something I've been speculating about. I do know that with military knives, one of the components that comes with a military knife is a sheath. And I've wondered all along, well, they've made a lot of hay about this style knife. Did the perpetrator possibly drop the sheath at the scene? And I think that's a legitimate question. Maybe they didn't, but I don't see how you get to military style knife. And I can talk about the knife all day long. I can talk about the quality of them, composition of them. I can talk to you about the components of them, what they look like, and what kind of injuries they'll leave behind. But it's just so very specific. You mentioned butcher knife. Well, yeah. And if it's a butcher knife, then you're getting off into a different area there, because homes have butcher knives. Does that mean that if it's a butcher knife, did the person show up armed with a butcher knife? Or is it a weapon of convenience? Is it something that they went into the kitchen and found and then utilized? I think that there's a higher probability with a group of young ladies that are living there, that are living out their college life and going to sororities and parties and all these sorts of things. I guess they could own a military knife, maybe. They're free to go buy one, but I would say there's a higher likelihood that they would have a butcher knife in the house, or something to cut food with and prepare food with, as opposed to.
How many of you have a butcher knife in your house? I know I do. I have a pretty nice knife in my house. More than one. A pretty big one, too. Jennifer Coffendaffer says normal protocol to bag the hand, so no surprise there. DNA in someone coming forward who is around the murder and has noticed a change or other off behavior since the murder will hopefully come forward and break the case. It says Idaho murder victim's hands bagged at the scene to preserve evidence. Did you guys hear that? It makes me think that their hands were chopped off. I hate to say it like that, and I don't mean to be brutal, so I apologize if it set wrong with you, but Idaho murders victims' hands are bagged at the scene. It means they put their hands in evidence bags. The hands of 4 murder victims stabbed in their house may hold evidence, and it's crucial for the case. Police who are working to determine who killed the 4 college students, Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Madison, while they were sleeping, and now they're saying between 3 and 4 on a Sunday. Part of their crime scene preservation, Idaho investigators bagged the victims' hands in an effort to save possible evidence. Guys, I know that this means that the law enforcement are the ones who bagged the hands, but does it mean that they were still attached when they bagged them? Forensic experts say it's possible the 4 victims' hands may contain evidence such as skin or hair under the fingernails that could provide major clues regarding the suspect's identity. Their hands may also have touched DNA. So, yeah, it sounds like they're still attached. There's also a big fat handprint on the window. Did you guys see that before? This is a good crime scene protocol, which also they say that if they did it right, it's more than likely nothing else was. Sorry, let me say this right. This is a good crime scene protocol, which means if they did this right, then they probably did everything else right too. So when you see an up-close attack like this, the chances are good that the victim scraped at the face or the arms of the assailant as they try to defend themselves. So it's a really good development. It was coming from the Idaho State Police Forensics Laboratory. They said that DNA can be found in any kind of cellular material, such as someone touching a surface or a handle, anywhere that blood or saliva may have been left. They said that they would be trying to develop DNA profiles from those surfaces in the case of latent prints. So we might be working in a room or a car or something of nature to develop prints off of something that's not necessarily visible to the naked eye. So I find that really fascinating. They said generally what we're looking to do is identify a potential suspect or suspects, perpetrators of a crime. And we want to do that by looking at samples from the scene and looking at fingerprints and DNA. And if investigators are able to find DNA from the crime scene, which is not always a given depending on the complexity of the crime scene, police can run that information against the Idaho State database. The entire process can take days, and some of the shortest homicides in weeks and complex ones. Additionally, everything that a scientist does at a laboratory has to be reviewed by a second scientist to make sure they arrive at the same conclusion. Gia Colon said that the scene is not a cut and dry case with DNA due to the fact that the home where the victims were killed, a college rental just steps off campus, probably had lots of mixture of DNA. And so they said if you found DNA specifically like on a body or blood droplets, then you can look at that DNA. But because there's so many people in the house, which that makes sense, right? There's 1 million people in the house. They're having parties in the house. People are coming and going in the house. It'd be easy for them to say, well, that's not necessarily a clue because there's all kinds of DNA evidence. Now, straight from law enforcement, the car is significant because they know it was there. And apparently there was at least one occupant. What we surmised, but now it's confirmed. So let's listen to that.
What's the significance of this car?
The significance of the car is we know it was there. We know we haven't spoken to who was in that car, who may have owned that car, and we need to speak to them. We know that that person could really have the information we need to break the case.
Wow.
What's the significance of
Robbie Johnson, I want to make sure I was unmuted because half the time I talk while I'm muted. Robbie Johnson, the Moscow police information officer, talks about the significance of the car. I didn't realize they came out and said like they knew the car was there. Let me see if there's a longer video of that. Former cop shares a moment. Scuba diver, American college student goes missing in France. I really want to unpack that American college student missing in France. By the way, maybe I'll do it in the afternoon tomorrow or something. Let me see. More than 1 million people. Okay, here we go.
It's the most wanted car in America. A white Hyundai Elantra like this one, seen near the house where 4 University of Idaho students were murdered. In the first big break in the case, Idaho police say the occupants may have critical information to share. The 2011 to 2013 Elantra was in the immediate area of the residence during the early morning hours the day of the murders, according to police. This is an Elantra sedan similar to the one police are looking for. 650,000 Elantras were built between 2011 and 2013. And because of their durability, many of them are still on the road. Also, they're very economical. They're the exact kind of car a college student might drive. Former FBI agent Stuart Kaplan believes the car was likely caught on Ring cameras in the neighborhood.
Detectives must have been able to identify this vehicle not only potentially in the vicinity of where the homicides occurred, but it is likely that this vehicle may have shown up where the victims were prior to returning home.
A major development.
The search is nationwide, with networks and cable news channels joining the hunt. Police don't have an image of the actual car they're looking for. They released 2 stock photos of 4-door Elantras, one with a moonroof.
One with a moonroof, one without. Doctora Latina, that's a really great point that I didn't think about. You said the failure of that person or persons, I think it's actually 2 people, in the white car to come forward speaks volumes. I didn't even think about it like that, but ding, 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 ding. You are right on the money. Thank you, Doctora Latina. Great observation.
The public's going to see that stock photo. They're going to recognize the stock photo more than a grainy video or a unclear photo of the car. It's going to be difficult. Is it impossible? Definitely not.
Today, police continued the poignant task of packing the victims' belongings to return to their families. The police chief himself drove the U-Haul truck.
Guys, Law and Crime Sidebar had an episode that came out just a little bit ago. It includes Brian Ensign as a guest, and so I want to unpack that with you guys and have some really important conversations about it. So yeah, we've got a lot to think about and to talk about. Also, Court TV has a segment we're going to be sharing in just a couple of minutes as well. What a great night. We're all joined here together, unpacking, trying to get justice for this case, choosing to stop at nothing, turning every single stone that there is, and doing our part as American citizens or even around the globe to make sure that these young adults that lost their lives for no reason know that their families know that there are people who are actually working hard for them. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this channel. Thank you for supporting what we're doing. And thank you for helping me get down to the bottom of this. And by the way, my personal viewpoint, and you're entitled to your own, but my personal viewpoint is the best thing that any of us could do is to pray for solutions and answers. I believe prayer is the solution for everything, always. So if you believe in prayer, maybe you would consider tonight saying a prayer for these families and saying a prayer for law enforcement that they could get down to the bottom of what's going on here. So thank you for committing to doing that, some of you. I also wanted to say thank you, Dr. Latina. You're number 13 on our super chat train. We're trying to get to 23. We're about the slowest train I've ever heard of tonight. So we're shy about 10 people. If anybody wants to hop aboard, I mean, surely out of like 2,200 people watching right now, 10 of you want to support what we're doing.
Come on, guys. Stumbled down the driveway like that? That's more than a couple beers.
To be honest, I haven't drank anything in like a month and a half. It's the Idaho murders investigation. From newly released police body cam footage in the early morning hours of the killings to an update on a search for a car to a warning to the online community, we break it all down with News Nation's senior national correspondent, Brian Entin, who's been covering the case from Moscow, Idaho. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
There's been a lot of questions about the white car that we've been interested in. We're looking for that car because we believe through our investigation that that car was in the area during the time of the murders. And we also believe that the occupant or occupants may have seen something. They may not know they have seen something. So we specifically want to talk to them and we want to know who they are.
They said that the car was at the residence, right? That's what they came out and said, that the car was at the residence, the police information officer. Am I wrong? Did we not just watch that? Thank you, Laura, for hopping aboard. That takes us to 14. So 9 more. 9 more. Like 0.001% of you guys supporting. That's great. Appreciate it.
Are and what they might know or might be able to contribute to the investigation.
We continue to follow the University of Idaho quadruple murder case. I'm talking about the killings of 21-year-old Kaylee Goncalves, 21-year-old Madison Mogan, 20-year-old Zana Kernodle, and 20-year-old Ethan Chapin. Their bodies found in their off-campus home out in the college town of Moscow. These killings...
Is it Zana, like a sauna with an X, or Xana?
Killings happened now 4 weeks ago, and at the time of this recording, no arrests have been made, no suspect identified, no murder weapon recovered. But we do have a few updates for you that we want to tackle. So let me bring in right now News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Entin.
Brian Entin looks very tired. Does he not? Look exhausted right there. Hey, Bill Reagan, good to see you. Thank you for your support. Really appreciate it.
Who has been on the ground and covering this case out of Moscow, Idaho. Brian, it's good to see you. I want to jump right into this, and I want to start with the body cam footage because the police released this full 45-minute body cam footage from the early morning hours on the day of the killings. I believe it's from plainclothes officers who are basically issuing citations to minors for alcohol. What is this video? What does this video exactly show? And what have police said about it? Because a lot of people have made a lot about this video.
Yeah, so the video is super eerie because it's from around the same time as when we believe the murders were happening. It's body cam video from an area called Band Field. That's a field next to the Sigma Chi fraternity house, which is literally, I would say, a 30 to 45 second walk from the house where the murders happened. Basically around 3 a.m.
A 30-second walk from where the murders happened, and these 2 plainclothes police officers are right outside the house. 30. You guys hear that? They were outside the house. There were 2 police officers sitting outside the house. A 30-second walk from the house. Tell me, how does that happen? That 4 teenagers are ruthlessly murdered in their sleep while outside the house sits 2 police officers 30-second walk away. I'm frustrated about that. I knew it was close. I didn't know it was a 30-second walk. Let's talk about ridiculous. My golly. Thank you, Elizabeth, for hopping aboard the super sticker train. You too, Naomi. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you for your support. What an amazing blessing. Thank you. Karen, it's good to see you tonight. I hope you are doing well. You said being that close to the case, I would imagine it would be hard to sleep at night. You said after last night's stream, I had nightmares. I know this case is one of the ones that have kind of got me, and I've not really been got by cases that we've studied, but this one, it's just like there's a level of evil that is so prevalent in this case that you're exactly right, Karen McCarty. You're exactly right. You're 1,000,000% right, Karen McCarty. It's hard to sleep. I don't want you to have nightmares. I'm going to pray against those. Father, in the name of Jesus, we just bless her with your power and peaceful sleep. A command under the authority of heaven, nightmares to go in Jesus' name. We don't want you to have nightmares. But I've had this case on my mind at night, and it's kept me up a little bit at times. So I would say that this case is rampant with evil. I said yesterday that sometimes you can sense evil in the atmosphere, and some people were like, "I'm leaving this channel." Well, guess what? I'm going to share my worldview when I talk about certain things, and many of you, probably the vast majority of you in the comment section, understand what I'm talking about. You've been in environments before that there's just an air of uneasiness and evil. So I feel like that's what these young men were probably feeling. We're trying to get back home as quick as possible because, by the way, there's a quadruple murder either taking place as they're in the middle of this conversation or minutes after. So, hey, Dr. Latina, you said officers took their eyes off the real ball, too busy issuing citations to meet their monthly quota, and these boys were afraid in the dark at that moment. Exactly. It just lines up. I appreciated your comment on my video from yesterday. You're exactly right. These young men were likely they look to be scared, in my opinion. I agree with what you're saying. We can't say they were because we don't know how they were feeling, but it felt like there was a little bit of fear in them, not totally, but a little bit of fear in them. They weren't going to stop. They kept trying to walk. And then not only that, but some plainclothes grown man starts chasing after them through a college field, a spot that historically only college students who live in the dorm walk through. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot going on there. And I think they were probably sensing and picking up on that. Not to mention, for the 1700th time, right across the way, a 30-second walk away, a quadruple homicide is taking place. Horrific. Thank you for your super sticker. By the way, that's number 19. We're trying to get to 23. We're 4 away. Thank you for your support.
Moscow police were called to Band Field, which is this big field, for an alcohol-related call, which obviously isn't unusual in a college town near the frat and sorority houses. Apparently, there were like some drunk people there or something. So it's all on body cam. They go out there. They talk to the kids. They're walking around. Police say that this incident has absolutely nothing to do with the murders. But again, what's so creepy about it is that it's happening around the same time that the murders are happening, and it's so close. So we've been, and all the online sleuths have been, analyzing this body cam, as I'm sure police have, because you can see houses in the background. You can see the general area of where the house where the murder happened is in the background, and the timing is just really, really strange.
But do you have any idea of why they say this is not connected in any way? Because one of the things that people have made a lot of is they say they can see 4 people jogging away from the murder house. Do you see that? I mean, what's your take on that aspect? Because people online have said they see the joggers. They ask, why are they running at 3 a.m.? Could it be possible there are 4 killers that make more sense than 1 or 2? What's your take on that?
So
that's it. I want to know the answer to that question too. Rob, thank you for your super chat. You said it's important to remember that Jesus will one day put an end to the evil that Satan perpetuates currently. Absolutely, 1,000,000%. We win. If you're a believer, we win. You're exactly right. Thank you for your super chat and saying that, and being number 20 out of 23 on our super chat train. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
So this is like when you're there, you understand it better when you're in that area. This is a very busy area because the fraternity and sorority houses are there, and because on the other side of Taylor Street, which is the street in the background of the body camera video, is where the like all the off-campus housing is, these big apartment buildings, also where the house is where the murder happened. It's all a very dense, busy area with kids walking around, going to and from parties at night, going to and from class during the day. So, I'm not convinced that those people that are seen in the background are somehow connected. I mean, of course, everything should be looked into, but, I take police at their word that they don't think anything. And, they didn't say that nothing in the video is connected. They just said that the incident that the video was recording with the drunk kids, the alcohol related call, was not connected. So, I'm sure they're looking at everything in the background. There's also like some cars that go by. At first, they released the info about the Hyundai Elantra they're looking for. My thought was perhaps they saw that in the body cam video. We went through it frame by frame. You can't really identify a Hyundai Elantra in the video. And then they later said that that's not where they came up with this car that they're looking for. So I think it's more a strange coincidence that this video was taken right around the time that the murders happened, but it doesn't seem like it's at all connected.
We'll get to the car in a second. Do you know why they released the body cam video? I mean,
Hey, 99 Pink Balloons, you said, have the cops from the field been ruled out? You're having me think about things that never even had crossed my mind. Do you think one of them have the dark triad, one of those police officers? That's making me shake in my boots, 99 Pink Balloons. Big time.
Do you plan on asking follow-up questions about this in terms of have you identified all of the people in the video? Do we know who the joggers are? Do we know anything more about the people that were stopped by police officers? I imagine people have more questions about this, and I wonder if the police is willing to share more information about it, because they seem to be okay with releasing the body cam footage for whatever purpose.
Yeah, so they released it because we put in a Public Records Freedom of Information Act for it. We went back through, so like online, you can go through all the police calls in Moscow, and they're very generic entries, but you can see them all. So we went back through, of course, the night and early morning of the murders to see like what else was going on in Moscow. Saw this call that at Band Field, which is right next to, not next to, but very, very close to where the murders happened. So we really zeroed in on that, reported on it, only had limited information that it was an alcohol call, put in the, the records request, and that's how the body cam ended up getting released. And again, like, they are being so careful about what they release with it related to the murder investigation. Like, we've put in all sorts of requests and we get nothing right now. The fact that they even released this body cam, I think, shows that they really believe it is not part of the investigation. But you're right. I mean, we should ask more questions about it. We haven't really had the opportunity. They haven't been doing very many on-camera interviews. Today we're told we'll be able to talk to them in person. So that is something that we can bring up.
That would be great. And you mentioned the 2011-2013 Hyundai Elantra that police asked for more information about. They want to speak to the occupants of this car. As you mentioned, it wasn't in the video. What's the latest on that? Have the police received a lot of tips about this car, or have they said we have a good lead on it? Or I'm not sure they would say that, but what do we know about how the investigation into that car is going?
So we know that they've received a lot of tips, like a ton of tips. So many tips that they say they've now routed all the calls away from the Moscow Police Department to the official FBI tip line.
They got an abundance of tips they're working through. 99 Pink Balloon says, remember Joseph D'Angelo was a cop and a killer. It could happen. It for sure could happen. You had me shaking in my boots thinking about it.
Call center, just because there's so many coming in and the FBI has the resources to sort of categorize them more quickly. And it's a somewhat common car, so I'm sure people all over the place, every time they see a Hyundai Elantra now, they're calling it in, which is great because maybe one of those will be connected. We still don't know exactly why they're looking for this car. I mean, we know that they say it was in the immediate area of the house around the time of the murders. We don't know how they know that. I mean, they've said it's not because of the body cam video, so maybe it was a witness or some piece of video. We don't know about some surveillance video. And we don't know, if they believe that the people in the car were somehow involved and up to no good, or were they literally just people driving by and they really just want to talk to them.
You got to figure that out. Dr. La Latina says we must rule out all in the crime zone, law enforcement included. Would you guys put a 1 in the chat if you think there's any chance law enforcement's responsible? Put a 2 in the chat if you think there's no way. Put a 3 in the chat if you're like, I really don't think there's a way, but we better check them out. I'm going to be a number 3 on this one. But I'd love to hear your thoughts because we're living in such wild times. Anything's possible. Pretty much anything's possible, unfortunately. Mamma mia. Oh, Olivia and Rebecca, thank you guys. Each both sent $5 over on Venmo. What a major blessing. Thank you for doing that. Thank you guys for supporting that way. If you guys want to support Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, it's down there at the bottom. The information is. Would love to have your support that way as well.
Because they were in the area at that time. Those are things we still don't know.
Yeah, and I read that agents at the U.S.-Canada border are also keeping a lookout if this car should pop up. Again, I guess the idea would be that whoever's driving that car may be trying to leave the country. But I wanted to ask you something else that I think is important in this case. I will tell you right now, I got attacked online about my comments about this in the sense that we have to be very careful about what is shared online and what information comes out online. I think it's a dual-edged sword, right? If people have credible, really strong information, you go to the authorities, but there is a danger with conspiracy theories. There is a danger with relying on misinformation. The reason I say that, and I got attacked online because there were people who are online sleuths and said that I'm going after online sleuths. We don't have to get into that. The point that I wanted to make is, haven't the police come out and said, we are looking at people who are engaging in online harassment? And have they signaled possible legal liability or criminal charges against these people?
So they haven't gone that into detail into it, but they did say that like they're looking into online harassment. If you're a victim of online harassment related to the case, to notify them. And you're right. I mean, I think that the online sleuthing is it's sort of like a tightrope. I mean, I love the online sleuths overall. I think they do great work. In other cases,
And that's why people like Brian Enton so much that are in the YouTube community, because he does such a great job. I forgot to mention this, guys. We do have 2 coffee flavors available. We're almost sold out. So if you're going to buy them, you should go buy them now. But we have blueberry pancake and we have peppermint mocha. Those are our December flavors. We're literally almost sold out. And so just like 1 or 2, I think, of the blueberry pancake left. And then I think maybe 5 or 6 of the peppermint mocha left. So if you guys are interested, I put the link in the chat. Would love to have you guys go pick some of that up.
I've covered, a lot of them are really, really responsible, and they can go through like every social media post, and really dig into it. Like you can't, and there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of them. Whereas I'm sure, they can find things that the police just don't have the time to do. So they're great in that way. But I think it crosses the line when people start contacting family members of victims, when they start contacting people who they classify as suspects who aren't suspects, when they start showing up at their houses. I mean, that's where it just clearly, goes too far and it can interfere. So, I find that the majority of them are just interested in the case and, doing their thing. But then there's always those few that, that go too far and kind of give everybody a bad rap.
Yeah, I think that's entirely fair. And, particularly when you have more eyeballs on the case, I think that's a good thing. People can see it from different angles, and maybe they can ask the right questions, and we try to answer those questions here on these kinds of shows. It's now 4 weeks, Brian, right? And I'm curious, in your experience covering these kinds of cases, where do you stick with this? Are you concerned at this point about where the investigation is headed? Are there things maybe it's just too early to know? Where do you see this case going maybe this upcoming week? Because we have hit the 4-week mark. And as I mentioned, no suspects identified publicly, no arrests have been made, no murder weapon has been recovered. What do you think as we've hit the 4-week mark?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I woke up this morning in Idaho. I went home for the weekend to Miami, and I came back last night, and I had this feeling this morning, and this is I have no evidence. I just had this feeling like this was a really pivotal week. Like 4 weeks in, people are trying to be patient, but I just feel like for that there's got to be some piece of new info this week that's hopefully released. I think it's interesting that there's not a reward. I wonder, do police know more than they're letting on? I really don't know. I think, we've gotten some heat. I'm sure you too. It's like, oh, you keep covering it. It's like, when's enough is enough. But it's like for these victims, if we leave, if we stop doing these podcasts and we stop doing this on News Nation, the pressure is on the police. Like the pressure is on with us all doing this every day for it not to be forgotten about. And, what's going to happen is if there's no updates, Law and Crime, News Nation, we'll stay on it, but like these big networks will start pulling out. And to me, that's like a really bothersome thing because that's how the cases go cold, I think. I think it is that constant pressure that the cops know that we're on it every day and they've got, you know what I mean? And I worry about that at the 4-week mark, like that I just hope that things don't start to slow down.
I think that's a really important point. And it's a really important point because the more information that could be shared with the public, particularly the
DJ Yo says, newsflash, they have the killer in mind. The feds are settling in on it. Could be, DJ Yo. You might be right. I don't know if that's true, but it could be the case. And we'll find out. We're definitely, I said that earlier that based on the quote that the police chief gave today or the captain of the police department gave today, I felt like, yeah, that could totally be the case because he said, we don't want just an arrest. We want a conviction. It made me think they knew who did it. So is that what you're going off of, or do you have a better source than that? Thank you for your super chat, by the way. Guys, I love it. We're in our last hour of the show. I got exciting thing about 14 tabs left open to share with you guys. There's no way we're going to be able to get to it tonight, but I'd love it if we started a brand new super sticker train and maybe actually met the goal this time. So let's do 21 super chats, super sticker trains. Would be just an amazing blessing if you guys wanted to hop aboard. Hey, Gina, she'll be the first aboard. She said, I'm kind of a nosy neighbor. No one heard anything. Well, then, what's right next door is an apartment complex full of college students and a fraternity house also full of college students who are all out all night partying. And so it's a good question. Supposedly there was a neighbor who heard a scream. Nobody knows if that's true or false. I think it was totally fabricated. So I don't know. But yeah, I think it makes sense in a college town full of college students who are out partying all night and they're sleeping at 3:30 in the morning. So, but good thought. I'm also glad I'm not your neighbor. I don't want to have a nosy neighbor. Thank you for your super chat. Hey, Christopher, thank you. Scooby Life, thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you guys for hopping aboard our super sticker train, showing your support. What an amazing blessing.
the community of Moscow, the whoever did this, their window becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. The room gets smaller and smaller and smaller because you have people on the lookout. They're updated about the case. They know what to look out for. And I think that becomes critical at this point because it's still early. It's still early. I know it's 4 weeks, but it's just 4 weeks ago that these lives were taken and these families destroyed. So we don't plan to slow down anytime soon. And I know you don't either. So Brian, I really think you're doing tremendous work out there. I appreciate you taking the time to come sidebar, speak to our listeners and our viewers about it. And we do have more information.
I mean, hopefully, I just hope this is a week where, the victims' families will get some more information, that there'll be some progress. Again, I hate to drag on about it, but it's like, it's frustrating for us covering it, but imagine being those family members. Like, I mean, how do you start to grieve? I mean,
how do you pick up the pieces? Exactly. How do you pick up the pieces after something like this?
Funerals because the killer hasn't been caught. So yeah, we'll just hope for some advancement this week.
Yep. Possible situation for them, and hopefully they get more information. Brian Enton, thank you so much. You can follow Brian on News Nation and also for his updates on.
Yeah, he's a good one to follow. Court TV also came out with a brand new segment today, totally about this case. I thought it'd be important for us to dive into it. So what do you guys say? You want to dive into it with me? Really appreciate you guys being here tonight. Thank you for all of your support. Thank you for liking the video, subscribing, Dr. Lisa Metcalf says, Tyler, consistently the police chief seems confident and centered. They have something. Great point. That's actually a really good point. I would agree with that. By the way, guys, I'm on a brand new app. I would love for you to join me on this app. It's totally free for you to download. A lot of your other favorite true crime creators, some of my favorites are on there as well. And you can go follow them, follow me. My username's Tyler Feller. I just put the link in the chat. Please click that link and go download it and follow me, because when I have a new update on this case, when it comes to my mind, I'm getting my phone out and I'm filming a quick video and I'm posting it over on that app. And so I put the link in the chat. If you guys want to be able to find me, I'll show you real fast too what my username looks like, which I had a little bit of a setback because my app wasn't totally working the other day. But anyways, that's what my username is right there, Tyler Feller. All you got to do is search Tyler Feller, and then you'll be able to see that and be a major blessing. Hey, Miss Lacey J, thank you so much. You said they definitely know more than we do. I missed a lot because I was driving on bad roads here in Idaho to get home. Love my Feller fam. Well, we love you, and I'm glad that you made it home safe. I was concerned for anybody in Idaho driving, and the snow's been there for over a month now. But it sounds like I actually saw the news report. There's like a blizzard warning across all of Middle America right now. So it's pretty intimidating. So I'm glad you made it home. Thank you for your super chat too. What a major blessing. We're trying to get to 21 on our super chat train, and you're 12/12, December 12th. That's amazing. It's 12/12 right now, 12/12/22 right now. And you're number 4 on our super sticker train. So thank you.
Tonight, new details about the wounds from Kaylee's father, saying they were more than a simple stabbing. Was she the target? Also, reports over the weekend of a convicted killer with a knife arrested in Moscow, Idaho. We have the details as the search for this dangerous killer continues.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Great to have you with us. And we're going to begin with the story in Idaho, because still no one has been arrested. And when you think about this case, you have to think about the impact that this horrific murders have had on so many different levels. It is a case, obviously, that everyone is talking about coast to coast. But let's start by zeroing in. You've got 4 victims.
I think I could have a show on Court TV. All I got to do is quit wearing a hat and wear a tie. And then I think I could have a show on Court TV. I would do that. I would sacrifice the hat and I would start to wear a tie if that's what it took. I think I'd be great on Court TV. Bill Reagan says, I went through those years back when you came home after a night of drinking, you slept hard. Many times with the stereo left on. Ain't nothing gonna wake you up. That's a good point. It's like I think they're in that same phase of life right now. They were out drinking hard, and they went to bed and probably are not going to wake up very easily. So thank you. Patty, thank you for that super sticker. Brian, thank you for that Cash App that you sent. What amazing blessing. Donna D, thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you guys for your support. It takes us to 7 on our super sticker train, trying to get to 21. And Cash App's a great way to support too, because there's absolutely no fees attached to Cash App. So when people give on there, boom, it's a major blessing. I would be scared too. She said we're scared here. I would be very scared. The app's called Swagit, Sparks. If you have an iPhone, maybe you can just download it. But if you're living outside the U.S., I'm not sure it's going to work.
In this case, who lost their lives, who had so much to live. I mean, this is the point of your life where you are becoming that adult, getting ready for that next phase. And to have that taken away, to have that stolen, is unforgivable. And in the way in which it happened, you're in your home and you are sleeping, and someone creeps in and takes your life. We still don't know who, we still don't know why, but 4 lives are gone. And you think about the impact, obviously, on the victims who don't get to live the rest of their lives. And then you go and you take a look at their families. Guys like Steve Goncalves, who is Kaylee's father, also a victim. And you see it and you hear it in everything that he does. Right now, he's at the point, right? You can't make sense of this, but you know you've lost your daughter, and now, okay, what do? Do you just, go quietly and sit in the corner? That's not what dads do. He wants justice. And I've said this countless times through the years, but when a parent loses a child, or you lose any loved one, and you've got that gaping void in your life that will never get filled, you never get closure, the only thing they can get is justice. And when that is being denied, it becomes almost unbearable. And that's what he is going through right now. And he's speaking out and he's lashing out. And he is going to keep the pressure on the public to come forward with information that they may have, put pressure on the killer, and keep pressure on investigators. That he's not going to forget, that he's not going to rest, that he's not going to sleep until there's an arrest and a prosecution.
Hey, Dominique, thank you so much for that super sticker. What a blessing. Bill says you do way better than this guy, hands down. Tyler, thank you, Bill, for believing in me. I think I would do pretty good too. I mean, compare my face to his face real fast. I'm just kidding. It's unfair. I paused it in a weird moment. Thank you, Bill, for your just your support. It really does mean a lot. And by the way, that takes us to 9 on our super sticker train, which means, guys, we're just, 12 away from reaching our goal. It'd be a major blessing if 12 of you guys want to hop aboard. If you want to hop aboard.
That's where he is and many other family members are. Also a victim. Additional victims in all of this, the entire community, especially the University of Idaho. The community's been rocked and shocked and shaken like they've never been before. This was a school, I didn't know much about the University of Idaho. I didn't apply there. I've never visited there. But from speaking with people and hearing them talk about what life was like before this quadruple mass murder and after, incredibly different. And you think about what life is like for all those students now. Anytime they meet someone, talk to someone, whether it's a family at the holidays, what are they going to be talking about? They're going to be talking about this murder. They should be talking about, these incredible experiences that they're having in college and what they're learning and what they're going to work on next. But inevitably, the conversation will always come back to this case. And whether they're at their 5-year reunion, 10-year reunion, 20-year reunion, they'll always be connected to this case.
No, that part is heartbreaking. Part of the thing about Vinny's show that people really like is when he gets a little further into the show, when he has the expert guests on and they're able to have actual conversation and discourse, unlike Nancy Grace's show where she just starts belittling them and telling them soup to nuts and a bunch of weird statements people don't really know what it means. Hey, Gina, thank you for that super sticker. You said, I lost my mother to suicide. Anger is real and grieving. Yeah. Good point. And sorry that happened to you. My goodness, that had to be traumatic. Praying for you. I don't know how long ago it was, but I believe when we go through really difficult things like that God actually, when we go through a healing process, can use us to help other people. And so I'll just pray and believe that for you. Hey, Joan, thank you. You're so kind, Joan. Thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing.
And that's a shame on the one hand. On the other hand, the victims will not be forgotten. So that's good. But it'd be better if there were no victims, obviously. So there was a graduation, midterm graduation ceremony that took place at the University of Idaho. And it was clear that, it's a time to celebrate the graduates, but this is at the top of everyone's mind.
It'd be a really weird time to graduate. You're like trying to graduate. You're like, this should be the best day of my life. I get to start my career. Woo! And then all of a sudden it's like, and now a moment of silence for your classmates that were ruthlessly murdered to death right next door. That would be horrifying. I wouldn't even go to graduation. I didn't even go to my own graduation, and nobody was murdered. So I for sure wouldn't go if somebody was murdered. I don't know. It's just not a thing for me. But it would take away the celebration. I'd be like, you need to go have a celebration somewhere else. Heaven 57, my 87-year-old dad loves trains, so I'm hopping aboard the super sticker train on behalf of my dad. What a blessing, Heaven 57. Thank you for doing that. Hey, Joanne, you said, I'm here finally. Good evening. Well, it's good to see you. You hopped aboard the super sticker train, Joanne, and you're number 12 out of 20, trying to get to 21. So what a major blessing. Sherry, I'm just making a joke off something Nancy Grace said. I'm not really trying to talk about soup and nuts and peanut soup and this and that. I'm just trying to say, she talks about Windsor tea and high noon and a bunch of stuff, and always is cutting people down and telling her producers to cut their mics. The point I'm trying to make is she's a little disrespectful to experts that she has come on her show. Compare and contrast that with Vinny, who brings amazing guests on, pretty much the same guests that she brings on, but he gives them an opportunity to share from their heart. And I think that's why people really like his show, because it's polite discourse. Hey, Naomi, thank you for hopping aboard that super sticker train. That's number 13. What a blessing.
Take a listen. Here's C. Scott Green, the president of the University of Idaho, at that ceremony.
It's been a tough few weeks for our community, and I want to acknowledge an enormous loss in our Vandal family recently. Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Maddie Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves were taken from us far too soon by a senseless act of violence. They were bright lights on our campus and cherished members of our community. Let's honor their memory with a moment of silence right now, followed by a song from the Vandaliers that honors the students we lost, as well as those students graduating today.
And you see how difficult that is. I mean, for the president, he's trying to make this an occasion to celebrate the graduates and their families and loved ones are there, and those students worked extremely hard to get those degrees and to have that moment. But you can't separate it from this other incredible tragedy. So impact everywhere. And that impact, I think, is felt greater until you get an arrest and you figure out who and why. And that has not been answered yet. Let me bring in tonight's guest.
Is it just me, or Vandals is not like a great mascot? I'm like, Vandals is your mascot? That's a great idea too, Dr. Latina. Why did they not give a posthumous diploma? Don't know. They should, shouldn't they?
Joining me tonight in Los Angeles, California, Caitlin Becker, senior reporter for Daily Mail.
I was about to say, that's the one from the Daily Mail. How come nobody's getting the memo about the Daily Mail not having any details right in their article that they put out yesterday? And she's on every single show you can imagine today. She was on Brian Enton's show. She's on this show. She was on Dr. Phil's show. She started her own show. And yet their article said that the murders took place between 2 and 3 a.m. And their article also said that a Hyundai Elantra only seats 4 people, which I understand that detail maybe is not the most important detail in the whole case, but still, it's like a no-brainer. If you have a 4-door car, there's 5 people that sit inside of it. It's not a Mini Cooper, all right? And some people have squeezed 5 people even in a Mini Cooper. But my point is, the article that the Daily Mail came out with was like so ridiculous yesterday. I had to take a deep breath, almost, get to the point of having to hyperventilate in a bag because it was so out of whack. Couldn't believe I spent 10 minutes trying to read through it and unpack it with you guys. And then finally I was like, this is the worst article I've seen about this entire case since the very beginning. I'm getting off of this website. I said that yesterday. And then next thing I know, oh yeah, and they didn't even spell Elantra correctly. And next thing I know, the lady from the Daily Mail is making the circuits on every single major show about the Idaho 4. You tell me how that makes sense. Doesn't make sense. I wonder if, and I hate that I think this way, I wonder if there's some corporate collaboration going on, some intentional cross-pollination going on. And if that's the case, it really just bothers me. It really bothers me. Tell you that much right now. Telling you everything I know, it really bothers me. So, yeah. Hey, by the way, guys, we're 8 away. Mama Barry just sent one from New Zealand. No way, Mama Barry. That makes us only 7 away from reaching our goal today. Wow. Major blessing. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Mail.com, who obviously on top of this story, and in Monroe, North Carolina.
Obviously not on top of the story. You kidding me, Vinny? See, that's why I think they should have me on the show. I can come on here and say the things that we know that have been said publicly. And I can say things like, well, originally they said that it was going to take place between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. But more recently, the rhetoric is saying they believe that the murders took place between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. Instead of saying something as ridiculous as it took place between 2 and 3 a.m. when there were 10 phone calls that took place all the way up until 2:52 a.m. by Kaylee and Madison. That's why that timeline makes a difference.
Death investigator, forensic criminologist, Dr. Laura Petler is with us as well. Great to see both of you. Caitlin, when I can't imagine what it's like for that community, for these students, for parents, not even just parents of the victims. That's obviously like they're, at a loss. But even parents of other students, this is on the top of their minds.
This has to be terrifying. I have to imagine if you are a member of this community, if you are a student at this school, you are petrified every single night when you go to sleep. The cops say it's a targeted attack, but that isn't something they're 100% sure of. There's no public persons of interest or suspect announced, and there just doesn't seem to be any huge movement on the case from the public's perspective. So if you're in this community, you're going to be scared. And ahead of this commencement, the authorities were warning people to be vigilant, to be careful. This was a big, this is a big event, a ton of students, who knows what's going to happen. That's really scary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to put on the screen, Laura, something from Fox News report. And this was Kaylee's father speaking out. And I said he's been loud and he's been
Another report from Kaylee's father, Steve Goncalves, and people were trying to get me not to talk about this tonight for whatever reason, despite the fact that every major news outlet that's been covering this case continues to reference Steve's interview. Guys, I think the interview was real from Steve, and the one comment that somebody took a screenshot of that was supposedly his daughter may have been her trying to cover his tracks because he didn't need to release the level of information that he did, or maybe she didn't know that he had released that information. But the fact that every single person has continued to go on record saying that Steve said these things, to me is a big fat sign that, yeah, these are legitimate quotes and comments from him. And I would think Fox News would be in big fat trouble if they fabricated an entire interview that he said. So it'd be interesting. You know what I mean? It'd be really interesting to figure out what the truth is. But I'm going to go with, even as we get deeper into this night, ding, 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 ding. Yes, Steve did these interviews. Hey, Brandon, hope you're doing well. Thank you for your super chat. You said, talk about timing. Steve Goncalves referred to Kaylee as having large gouges as opposed to stabbing wounds. This was relayed to him by the coroner, Kathy Mabbitt. That's right. And it wasn't like stabs, it was tears, he was saying. So thank you for your super chat. Great insight there, Brandon, and something we're about to talk about, it seems like. Hey, Naomi, thank you for that super sticker. What a major blessing. That takes us to 16, which means, can we get 5 more of you? Is it possible to get 5 more of you to hop aboard the super sticker train? Let me see. 5 divided by 2,200. Let's do the math real fast. 5 divided by 2,200. 0.0022727.3% of you. So 0.002% of you. Is it possible that 0.002% of you would be willing to support the stream here? That's one thing. I'm like, golly, If everybody watching just gave $1, that'd make the world's biggest difference.
Very direct and for obvious reasons. Stephen Goncalves said he asked the coroner, Kathy Mabbutt, how many times the victims were stabbed. She says, sir, I don't think stabs is the right word. It was like tears, like this was a strong weapon, not like a stab, he told Fox News Digital on Sunday. She said these were big open gouges. She said it was quick. These weren't something where you were going to be able to call 911. They were not going to slowly bleed out.
Wow, it's things we already knew. Hey, JUH, thank you for that. Amy Heights, thank you for that super sticker. Really appreciate you guys. Takes us to 18. And Makeup Lava, please, Tyler, get to the story. Sorry, I'm adding commentary. It's what we do here. It's what I do. If you want to watch Court TV, just go to Court TV. Tyler, begging looks bad on you. I'm not begging. I'm not begging. But what looks bad is having 2,200 people on a stream and not giving them an opportunity to support. That's what looks bad. That's what I think. Mountain Bluebird, thank you. You said, heck yeah. Thank you. Yeah, heck yeah, I agree. Sparks, thank you so much. You said it all adds up. Absolutely. Every little tiny bit adds up. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for helping us out.
He said, and there he's describing what happened to his daughter. And he said there's a distinction between the wounds that his daughter suffered and that Maddie, who was in the same bed with her, suffered. What does that tell you? Does that make it seem more likely that Kaylee may have been the target of the killer here?
I think, Vinny, the first thing to remember is that it's his interpretation of what the coroner's saying. So, we don't have the case file, so I don't want to speculate and potentially put misinformation out there. But yes, is it possible that the victims experienced different types of wounds inflicted by one or more parties involved in this incident? Absolutely. But yes, it also is important to remember that during the wound pattern analysis phase of any kind of investigation like this, they are identified and analyzed individually, but then we cross compare them too. So that's where they're getting this.
That cross comparison is where the major meat's going to be coming from. Hey, Cajun Tim, thank you so much for that. What a major blessing. Hey, Sassy but Classy, thank you, thank you, thank you. You said, hi, Tyler, I love your channel. Hope this helps. Well, it helps majorly. It helps majorly. Absolutely, it helps majorly. Hey, Mountain Kayaker, thank you for that super sticker. Oh, I don't know what you mean, Makeup Lava, but I assume I misinterpreted it, so I apologize to you.
This piece of, well, Kaylee was victimized differently than maybe some of the other victims were. So yes, it can be indicative of that, but it can also be indicative of other characteristics and psychology of the offender. So to speculate, could be misleading. So I want to keep it in frame, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And what we're wondering is, because we keep hearing the word targeted and trying to understand who's targeted, why are they targeted?
Yes.
And it has a couple of reasons. One is I believe it's the way to lead to the killer here, because I don't know if the DNA is going to do it. Because if this killer never killed before and they're not on 23andMe, then the DNA helps guys like me when it's time to prosecute someone. But first, you got to catch them.
Right.
I don't think you guys should be doing 23andMe personally, or Ancestry.com and all that baloney. Personally, I don't really think you should be doing it. By the way, Sassy but Classy, I just want to thank you again. Very kind of you. Thank you. Guys, all of our money goes into our ministry, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. And a portion of that we take every month and attribute to what we call our benevolence fund, where we help people who's a part of our channel and ministry in short-term financial hardships, along with having staff members and hosting events around the country. So just know that when you support this ministry, it's a major blessing. Spark says, "Can Cash App be used here?" Yes, Cash App $Tyler22.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes in certain types of homicide, the forensic evidence is not as valuable as in other types, such as intimate partner homicide. Sometimes if it's in a marital residence, you expect all of that to be there. In this particular case, because it was a house that housed 6 different people, at least at this point, that we know about, there are definitely lots of people coming in and out. When you think of all the friends that college kids have, it's very normal for them to have all of these kids come in and out, for everybody to be socializing. So the police have a very daunting task to try to separate any kind of DNA evidence to be determined whether a piece of evidence that's DNA is actually forensically significant, or if it's just part of the actual scene itself. You know, what is the determining factor? Clearly, where the DNA is, and especially the fact that if it is in liquid blood, Vinny, that is huge. You know, if an offender cuts him or herself as the hand slides down the blade, and then the offender's liquid blood gets mixed with the victim's liquid blood, there is only one explanation for that, typically, and that is that they are bleeding at the same time during the same event.
Absolutely. And if you talk about any other DNA, I know what the defense attorney is going to say. Well, you know, they were there at that house many times because there were parties five nights a week at that house. Caitlin, let's talk about Kaylee's father again, because he's been very, very outspoken, and he seems to be harboring a level of frustration at this point where he wants more information released than's being released, and he is very concerned, it seems, that investigators may be in over their heads here.
I think that's totally understandable. And I have to imagine all of the families in this situation are feeling a level of frustration. We're almost a month into this with no answers. And based on what we're hearing from Steve Goncalves, he's not getting answers from the police either. So it's not just something that they're not releasing publicly. They're not telling the victims' families as well. That has to be, you know, really unsettling when all you're looking for, you know, in the beginning of this video, you were saying that this man wants justice. Right now, before justice, I think he wants answers. He's not getting those either, which is a concern. And absolutely do I think the Moscow police are in over their head. Of course they are. This is a small community that had not had a murder for 7 years. However, the FBI is involved. They have 46 people working on this across the country. So it is not like they're going in this with a teeny tiny police force. There's a wide amount of law enforcement that's working on this. But as you just heard described from the blood alone that could potentially be in this house, there is a ton of evidence that needs to be processed, and it's going to take a very long time.
I want to put up on the screen something else from Fox News report that the victims' hands were bagged at the scene. The hands of 4 murder victims stabbed in their house off of the University of Idaho campus on November 13th may hold evidence that's crucial to the unsolved case. As part of their crime scene preservation, Idaho investigators bagged the victims' hands in an effort to save possible clues before moving their bodies out of the crime scene, the county coroner told Fox News. Laura, it comes back again to that issue of DNA, right? And in trying to see if there's anything on the victims that connects them to their killer. If there is DNA somewhere on their hands, how do you find it? How are you going to find the killer that way? I mean, unless this killer's killed before or is in the system, it doesn't seem like it's going to lead to an arrest.
So I think there's a couple things to recognize pursuant to the DNA that you're talking about there, Vinny. The first thing is it's very common and it's proper procedure for everybody's hands to be bagged at a scene of this nature. Any victim, any decedent, they should be bagged. But not only is it DNA evidence, but it's also trace evidence. There's also science out there where
Yeah, that trace evidence, hopefully, and the thing that I'm thinking of, like, is if the killer went in the house, he could have been totally masked, totally gloved. I mean, this is a snowy area. I don't know if Miss Lacey J is still on here, but if she is, Does every single person in Idaho have a ski mask? Probably. Does every single person in Idaho have gloves? Probably. So I would think head to toe they went in completely covered, knowing that they were going to commit a murder, knowing that they could leave DNA evidence around. I would say absolutely.
Fingerprints, for example, can be taken off of human skin. That has been developed. So not only can there be DNA on the skin, well, clearly it's going to be predominantly the victim, but there could be a mixture of DNA. There could be other trace evidence. There could be fiber evidence. There could be hair evidence. There could be other types of evidence. So bagging hands, bagging feet is standard procedure. The second piece that goes along with that, from my perspective, that I like to see crime scene investigators do in every case of this nature is to lay a white sheet out on the body bag before you place the body into the bag, because again, just like bagging the hands, you're putting that extra layer of protection in there, catching any debris or trace evidence or anything that might contain DNA into that white sheet. So then the whole thing goes to the medical examiner's office and is processed in a controlled environment. That way we can maximize any potential that we might have to collect a specimen that would lead to a killer.
And I'm sure they're working hard. There's no doubt they've been working through holidays, working through the weekends, etc. Our guests are staying with us. Caitlin Becker from Daily Mail.
I mean, I agree. They are working hard. There's been no doubt in my mind that they're working their butts off on this case. They've been doing it since the very beginning. They've been working hard. However, the question that I have is not their work ethic. We've seen them on Thanksgiving evening at 6 p.m. going in the house and trying to figure out if there's more evidence, which is the line in Call of Duty that they signed up for. And so I commend them for it, but they also knew what they were getting themselves into, as what Don Caesar told us. The thing that I'm comparing them against is not their work ethic, it's their experience level. What is their experience level in this? Allison, you're so generous, and I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for that super sticker, Allison. It's such an amazing blessing. And I thank you for your support and continued support of what we do here.
.com senior reporter there, and Laura Petler, death investigator. We're going to talk more about it. There's some new information coming out from investigators. We'll give you the latest from there. Plus, coming up next hour on this program.
In Oakland County, Michigan, the Oxford school shooter who took the lives of 4 classmates after Voluntary May locked up is overwhelmed. Explore Cortigal plot.
An Oxford shooting is a whole nother case, isn't it? And the parents are arrested, and then parents should be held responsible. Same thing with Billy Joe in the Quentin Simon case. I said from the beginning she needed to be arrested.
I would just like to add that we should always be vigilant. Certainly we should be vigilant now, but we should make that a way of life for us. We should always be walking with our head up, sticking to lighted paths, and walking in groups if we can. And in addition, letting people know when you've arrived home if you have not made prior arrangements. This is not an indication of a specific elevated risk, but something that we should be vigilant with just in our daily lives.
Incredibly true, but incredibly sad. That's Captain Roger Lanier, Moscow Police Department out in Idaho. And life wasn't like that before this. Yeah, you stay vigilant, you be smart, but yeah, you go home, you need to lock your doors. People didn't think about it that way. There weren't murders here. This wasn't dangerous. It was a nice, safe college town. Everyone got along. Not anymore. Not anymore. The age of innocence gone at the University of Idaho. Unbelievable. Here's the captain with more of an update in terms of some of the information that they're looking for and what they can tell us at this point.
There's been a lot of questions about the white car that we've been interested in. We're looking for that car because we believe through our investigation that that car was in the area during the time of the murders. And we also believe that the occupant or occupants may have seen something. They may not know they have seen something. So we specifically want to talk to them, and we want to know who they are and what they might know or might be able to contribute to the investigation. Our analysts have spent hours sorting through and trying to come up with the most relevant tips first for the investigators to follow up on. They have re-interviewed some of the folks we've interviewed earlier in this investigation to clarify information. Sometimes when new information comes forward, the people that we've spoken to beforehand may have new insight on that. So it does often seem like we're backtracking, but we're really just trying to get the most important details and the best timeline that we can come up with. We have literally an army of analysts who have been sorting through videos that have been submitted through the FBI.gov Moscow upload site. Those videos are from all over town, gas stations, and specifically the area around King Road. We've been trying to use those videos to garner new information, as you can.
Yeah, we need the new information. Hey, Schmitty, first time giving from St. Louis. You're a class act. Well, thank you so much. And you know what? I grew up in Missouri, so I've been to St. Louis about 700 million times. And the only thing that scares me about St. Louis is taking that little elevator pod to the top of the arch when the wind's blowing. Have you done that before? My gosh, that will send shivers down your spine. Thank you for your super chat. Deborah, you're always so generous. Thank you so much. And thank you. You sent a gift over on Cash App too. You're so generous and kind. I really appreciate you, Deborah. Thank you so much.
Imagine there's hours and hours and hours of video, so it does take a lot of time.
Let's bring back in our guest, Caitlin Becker, senior reporter, dailymail.com, and Dr. Laura Petler, death investigator, forensic criminologist. Caitlin, this police department has been they've spoken out. They've continued to keep the lines of communication open, but there's obvious limitations as to what they're saying. But they really have put a lot of focus on this white car.
They're trying to get any and all information they can about who may have been driving this particular 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai. Border Patrol agents have been alerted to keep an eye out for this vehicle. There is no license plate, so we're kind of just looking for anything that looks like that particular car. These are the photos they released. It is not the exact car. They're stock photos, but they're very interested in talking to someone about this specific thing. On that note, though, once they started looking for the driver of this white car, so many of the tips, this huge influx of tips have been coming in, are specifically about that. And there's a concern that it might clog up some really crucial information that could be lost in some of the other tips that aren't going to get looked at for some time.
I mean, it's good that the community is responding. I think
absolutely.
I mean, it seems like they are hoping that one of these tips leads to something. And sometimes someone may know something that they don't think is significant and ends up being very significant. But I'm intrigued by this car. If it's around the scene at the time, maybe they saw something, or maybe they are perhaps involved. Who knows? Who knows?
Guys, I'm almost running out of steam tonight, but Brian Ensign just posted a new video. So we're going to take a poll. If you really want me to keep going, put a 1 in the chat. If you're like, you know what, we've had enough of you tonight, we'll come back tomorrow, put a 2 in the chat. Because I'm good either way, guys. I'm good either way. We could do the Brian Ensign thing, but you got to really want it. Okay, you guys really want it. All right. I am running out of steam, so... But we've got good energy on here tonight, so I'm thinking maybe we should just go for it. Again, he's been in Miami. He's been on vacation. Not on vacation. He went home to check on his dog and his mom, he said. And now he's back in town. Came back. He back in Moscow, Idaho.
on Thursday night when Nancy got that video of what looked like some kind of investigator showing up. A lot of you have been calling them the Cowboys because I think one had a cowboy hat. But it's been quiet ever since. Super foggy here. Like, I don't know if you can tell with the lighting. Very, very foggy. Yes, it is really cold. You might be able to hear some people in the distance. Over here you can't see because it's so foggy, but there's like some people sledding over there if you hear like people talking in the distance. But I did an interview today with the new public information officer for the police department. They've kind of been shuffling through different people who are coming in from out of town that like work with the state to help them out. Not a ton of new information today. Still saying officially no suspects, but the captain at the police department did say something interesting. He said, which we've kind of heard before, but that they're not releasing a lot of information that they know because they don't want to compromise the investigation. And then he said something like, you know, we don't only want an arrest, like we want to make sure this is solid for a trial, which I thought was really interesting.
I thought that part was interesting too, because it means that they have somebody in mind. I don't know why I'm still smiling like that. Hey, Raw Olympia, thank you for that super sticker. Donna, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. By the way, guys, I do have a second channel. I don't know if you know this or not. It's called Tyler Feller 2. And on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Central Time Zone, I do another podcast with my friend who's my neighbor, Star. And we talk about literally any topic in the whole wide world. And you know what? I would love to have you tomorrow join us over there. Tyler Feller 2, I just put the link in the chat. Please go subscribe. 2 p.m. Central Time Zone tomorrow. My neighbor Star and I, we do a podcast, and a lot of people love it. And you know what? The thing about her, she makes me laugh a lot. And people watch it and they start laughing. So I would encourage you guys, be with us tomorrow as we're going to dive into that. But yeah, Brian Enton, the thing that he's saying right here, my goodness, it's one of the most important parts, I think, of that whole interview. Because what's said is they're not looking just for an arrest, but a conviction. It makes me feel like they have an idea of who it is. Hey, Stephanie, thank you for hopping aboard our super sticker train. And you know what, guys? We are we're bringing that train home. Which, you know what? Just as a bonus round, can we get 10 people on a bonus round super sticker train? Just because, here's the thing, guys, because I wasn't planning on continuing to go, but here we are. So we might as well make it worth it, right? Thank you for your support and being here with us. Let's see what else Brian Enton says. I thought that was an interesting point too, what he's saying.
Still saying officially no suspects, but the captain at the police department did say something interesting. He said, which we've kind of heard before, but that they're not releasing a lot of information that they know because they don't want to compromise the investigation. And then he said something like, you know, we don't only want an arrest, like we want to make sure this is solid for a trial, which I thought was really interesting. So, you know, it's still unclear what they know behind the scenes. Yeah, the cell service is really bad here for those of you saying my camera quality is bad, although it might just be also that it's so foggy. Like it might just look fuzzy, but it actually is foggy out here.
Oh, I thought he had bad signal. That's what I was thinking. Bill Reagan says, agreed. They're on to something. Exactly what I'm thinking too. Thank you for hopping aboard. Deborah Lee, thank you for that super sticker. Bada bing, bada boop. That's 2 of you guys on the super sticker train. Trying to get to 10. Schwindiga says those boys got $450 tickets and was so polite. That's definitely what I was saying. Like, they were super polite, in my opinion. $487.50. Naomi, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So some of you are asking about Kaylee's dad. Yes, there was this Fox report today attributing some stuff to her dad, and the family came back and said that basically it wasn't true. So I don't really know much more than that. It's not something I reported. So that's sort of I know a lot of you are asking about that. Did I hear about a black glove found outside the house? So there was one early on. There was a podcaster, I forget his name, former homicide detective, who found a black glove over here by the trash cans. Banfield's actually going to talk about that tonight. I'll be on Banfield on News Nation in like about a half an hour.
I didn't know that. Lauren, thank you for that super sticker.
Yeah, the interview room. That's right. Yep. Some of you are saying you bet the house will be torn down. We actually talked to, let me get Lauren, actually, my producer, because she can give.
I hope he doesn't say they talked to the owner and they're going to rent it out starting next week. Ugh. I think they just need to blow the thing up. But if you own a property and you own 3 or 4 properties and you have debt leveraged against it, unless you had the cash to pay it off, you're not going to be able to just blow a house up. That's your income. I understand that, but it's despicable. And I wish that there was some level of a subsidy that could help depending on the situation. Hey, thank you so much, Karen, for that super sticker. It takes us to 5, trying to get to 10. What a blessing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Give you a better. Hey, Lauren, will you say do you mind saying when you call the real estate company? I'm on the live stream. Oh, yeah. But just since you have you actually talk to them. Some people are asking about the house and if it'll be torn down.
Yeah.
Like, what did they tell you today?
So they said that it was hard to say because they have to send the
Insurance
inspector in to check on like to assess the damages
right
in the home before.
Assess the damages. There's a quadruple murder that took place in that. The damages, even if the house is structurally fine, is not going to be one that people want to rent because of the bad mojo that took place on that ground. Golly. I mean, I get it. It's business and it just is what it is. But it's stupid business. I'll tell you that much. It's stupid business. That's what I think. Do you guys, you have me on the stream this long? Putting ones in the chat, hoping I keep on. You're going to get me saying things like that.
Or anything can be done, and they have no idea when the house is going to be released to them. So they don't know. And they said that they've never dealt with anything like this, so they don't have anything else to compare it to.
And it's basically an investment property.
Yeah.
It's not like it's under an LLC.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
So, thank you everybody for all the DMs. I had a chance to go through a bunch this weekend. I went home for the weekend, so I haven't seen, some of you asking, has anyone cleaned it yet? I haven't seen any cleaning crews. It's just kind of a random thing, but like you guys like random stuff sometimes. Speaking of cleaning, so there's this like dumpster. There's like these big apartment buildings, and then there's this dumpster that they haven't gotten the trash since we've been here for weeks. So like, not that that has anything to do with the investigation. It's just kind of weird. Like you'd think with all the media and attention on the house, just a random thing. But like we literally stand next to all this trash every day. I'm just surprised they haven't come. Like, I don't know why they don't do trash service.
They need to be doing trash service. Tell you that much.
So some of you, hey Mo, what time is it? Just want to make sure I have time. 6:37. Okay, I can walk to the back of the house. I have time. Some of you are asking me to walk to the back of the house. So some of you are asking about like if we're investigating people that knew the victims. We're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and you guys know from other stories we've covered, like we don't report anything until we can confirm it and vet it. So there's a lot we're doing behind the scenes that we're just not reporting at this point. So a lot of the stuff you guys are talking about that you send me, we are looking into. I don't really put anything out until we have it confirmed. This is the back of the house. There's this big, I've shown you guys before, there's this big parking lot. There's a hill here, and then there's houses. You can kind of see back through the trees where the light is. There's some houses back there too. No cameras back here that I can see. And some of you are asking about graduation. So graduation was over the weekend. It's really cleared out here. Like a lot of people went home. Finals week is online. So it's kind of eerie here because it was already quiet because a lot of students didn't come back after the murders. But now it's like really, really quiet in town. No lights in the house are on. Just the outside lights.
I think Brian Inson's like under the weather or something. He's breathing hard. But I know it's a big hill to climb. Hey, Aaron M., thank you for your super chat. You said supporting your journey is significant to me. Well, thank you. You're number 6 on the super chat train, and I appreciate you just even saying that. It warms my heart, Aaron. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. Hey, Naomi, what a blessing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate you hopping aboard number 7 on our train today. I know I hate to say that about somebody, but he looked bad and he does sound sick. I hope he doesn't have COVID, honestly. That'd be the worst if he's out there with COVID.
Some of you are asking about the guard. The guards are actually really nice. It's like a private company, random side nugget, but like one of the guards is Native American and like has been praying with his family, like for the victims and stuff. It's been nice to hear.
Huh. Wonder what kind of prayers, you know?
And like has been praying with his family, like for the victims and stuff. It's been nice to hear.
Because I'm very interested in learning a little bit more about that. Hey, Seal, thank you for that, Sil, for that super sticker. What a blessing. Really appreciate that. That takes us to 8 out of 10 on our bonus train. I get nervous about types of prayers that people are doing, especially when he prefaced it. It almost sounds like, I don't know. I don't want to get into it because I don't know, but I'm curious now. He's piqued my curiosity.
A lot of you asking about this story with Kaylee's dad today that the family is that I don't know much about it because I didn't report it. So I just know the family said it's not true. The police hired the guards. I think because they have such a small police force, they didn't want to have officers tied up here all the time. So they just hired this private security company. It is still considered a crime scene, yeah. Luis isn't with me, my normal cameraman. He was off at the beginning of this, so I've been here with Mo, who's been great. Do I personally think there's a suspect? Truthfully,
Guys, I'm not. The fact that he said a Native American is out here praying made it sound like it's a different type of prayer than just what normal prayer to God through Jesus is. That's why I hesitated. It made it sound like there's something other than just like a typical prayer going on out there, because why would he have to say it with the preface of Native American? That's all. That's all I'm trying to make a point of. It, I don't mean anything by it. I love freedom of religion, and you're entitled to believe however you choose to believe. Personally, I choose to follow Jesus, and I'm very passionate about that. And anytime people are praying in ways that are not to God through Jesus, my antennas go up, and I'm like, what's going on there? So the fact that he prefaced it that way instead of just said like they were out there praying for the families, it almost meant like it could mean something a little bit different. That's all I mean by it. And you're saying Jesus is okay with it. I don't think you can say that, Penny, because you don't know. You have no idea what they're praying, and you don't know if Jesus is okay with it. So don't say that. Hey, Chris, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. That takes us to number 9. Prayer to God through Jesus is the solution for everything, always. 100%. I believe that.
I really don't know. Today, what the captain said about, it not just being about an arrest, but them wanting to make sure it's solid in court. Like, I thought that was really interesting. It made it sound like perhaps they know something more than what they're letting on, but we really don't know. Yeah, security is only in the front. White car update. Some of you are asking the Hyundai Elantra. So apparently, like, they've been flooded with tips ever since they put out that they're looking for the Hyundai Elantra. So many tips that they've now had to redirect, like, the tip line. Instead of going to Moscow, it goes to the FBI call center where there's more people to take the calls. So when I interviewed police today, they said that they were still going through all calls that came in from over the weekend. So a lot of people are calling in.
Okay, no more talk about prayer in the comment section. Every single Friday, we go in depth about our religious beliefs on this channel. From this point forward, nothing I say is going to be able to be received appropriately. And I don't think the things that you guys are saying are going to be able to be articulated. Let's shift our focus back on what it really should be on in this moment, which is Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana. Okay, hit the reset. If you guys want to talk about prayer, every single Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time Zone, we talk in depth about our spiritual beliefs. And I have no refrain about what I believe. I went to seminary. I was spent my entire adult life in full-time ministry as a pastor until recently, when I got very sick with COVID, was bedridden for several months and had to leave my church because of the significant symptoms from long COVID that I have and still have. Haven't recovered. Standing up in particular is a very significant challenge for me. And I have an incurable disease that came from COVID. And so, just to let you guys know a little bit of my background that might be new here. Hey, Naomi, thank you for that super sticker. What a blessing. Hayden says, any feelings, they know who it is. Love you, bro. Thanks. Hey, thanks, Hayden. Really appreciate it. I think they know. I think they got an idea of who they think it is because of what they said today in the press conference, which is we don't want just an arrest. We want a conviction. And so I really feel like they're going after getting that conviction. So, yeah, I think they have an idea, at least at this point, of who it is, which is encouraging. It's today. I know people in the beginning were like, that press conference was nothing. And then it's like, actually, there might be some clue pieces in there that tend to be a little more significant than we realize. So thank you for your super chat. Yeah, I almost died of COVID too. And people in my family did die. It was a really rough time. And I know a lot of people had to deal with that. So just is what it is, guys.
Do I think the case is going cold? So I asked that. I mean, if you look at my tweet earlier, I have it on camera. I asked the police public information officer that, and she was, gave a hard no, that they're getting so many tips. They say it is not going cold. Yeah, no autopsies released. We've put in public records requests for those, but they can hold that stuff back because of the ongoing investigation. So a lot of you, not a lot of you, a few of you have given me a hard time about like, oh, you're still out there. You guys are milking the story. And like, I just think it's important for us to stay, to keep it in the news. Like we're trying to do it responsibly. And, you know, we don't want to interfere with the investigation. But, you know, I think if it, you know, keeping it in the news.
This person unsubscribed because they're offended that I said praying to Jesus. Sorry. Unsubscribe. Please educate yourself. I just gave you my credentials. I don't even know if it's possible for me to be much more educated than possibly having a PhD. Like, I'm pretty highly educated, actually. You should check my credentials. I'm pretty highly educated, actually. You should educate yourself. And I'm totally entitled to what I believe. So that one's actually kind of funny to me. I'm actually entitled to being able to share what I believe. So, again, I've said it 100 times. You don't have to believe what I believe to be a part of this channel, but I'm going to definitely share what I believe, just as the way it is.
News, keeping it in the headlines is keeps pressure on the police. I know that's what some of the families want. It's not solved. I mean, there's still an active crime scene. Like, I just don't think we can leave right now. So
Do you guys hear screaming in the background right now? Listen for screaming.
I just don't think we can leave right now. So
They're screaming.
ladder. Some of you asked me about the ladder. Yeah, there is a ladder. You can't, it's probably too dark and foggy right now, but there is a ladder on the other side of the house that has been there since the beginning, which is kind of interesting. I was talking to Banfield about that today. I can try to show you, but I think it's too dark. It's on this side of the house. You probably can't see it. I'll try to zoom in. That's the ladder there. That's been there from the beginning. Hopefully you guys can see that. The noise is people sledding. There's a hill back at Banfield. That's the name of the field. You remember that's where the alcohol call was with the body camera video. There's a yeah, sorry, someone just said people were giving me grief during Gabby too. Yeah, some people were. Oh, sorry, I got distracted. Yeah, so there's people sledding. So that's like, and like kind of yelling when they sled. That's what you hear in the distance. It's not, I don't think it's like college people. It kind of seems like families or something.
Like, a lot of the college students have to be home by now, right? Idaho University finals. Like, when are they? Let me look at the fall 2022 exam schedule. All right, just Google the fall 2022 exam schedule. Oh, final exams start tomorrow. So this is finals week there. I just looked it up right now. The University of Idaho, it's finals week there. So starting the next 2, 3, 4 days, all the college students are going to hit the road. I remember when I went off to college and I had an off-campus apartment. I was living there full time, but when class wasn't in session, I was like the only student in the whole city, it felt like, left. So many people take off and go back home when you go to a large university like that. And so I think soon enough, every student's going to be gone. The town's going to be like a ghost town there. So
some of you asking about the surviving roommates. I haven't talked to them. The most we've heard from them is when they released that statement at the church service, but we haven't heard any, you know, they haven't done any interviews or anything like that. So So thank you guys for following. We'll be here.
D Random says the two roommates that were not harmed were sleeping. How could that have been confirmed? Just asking. I guess it's just by their testimony. They were interviewing them. Like, well, where were you guys at? Like, well, we were in the basement sleeping. Well, did you not hear anything? Well, we couldn't hear anything. I pretty much think that that's how that went down, D Random. Thank you for your super chat too, by the way. Um, hey guys, I painted this beautiful painting. It represents to me the blood of Jesus and the water. And in the Old Testament, they used to pour out wine on one side of the altar and water on the other side, and it would come and mix together. And that's what I was painting here. When Jesus was on the cross, they pierced his side, and out of it came water and his blood. And so this painting represents Jesus's water and blood. If anybody's interested in it, I'd love to put it in the mail to you. I think it's like 16 by 24. I have it right here beside me. And so if you're interested in that, email me, press@tylerfell.com. I'd love that to you. Also, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I do have a second channel. It's called Tyler Feller 2. This is going to serve as a backup channel in case anything ever happens to this channel, which might happen. And if you haven't, will you please at least go subscribe over to that channel? But Tuesdays at 2, I do a podcast over there. Hey, Irene, thank you so much for that super sticker. What an amazing blessing that is. I want to take a second, guys, just before we get off the stream tonight. And don't get off here because I want to just take a second and pray for you. But after that, I have something else I want to share with you. Can I pray for you for just a second? Father, I thank you for every single person that you brought on this stream. And I just declare over their lives right now that their spiritual senses would be awakened to your goodness that follows them. Your word actually says, like, you have little sheepdogs that go with us called goodness and mercy. Father, would you awaken our senses to goodness and mercy? And I just declare right now for every single person watching, in the name of Jesus, that their sleep would not be interrupted because of this case. Your word says you didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And I just declare that over people watching right now. Lord, would you reveal to the law enforcement what took place in this case, that there could be a quick, expedited solution? And Father, would you be with the families? Your word says you're close to the brokenhearted. Can they sense your closeness? In Jesus' name, amen. Guys, thank you so much. I wanted to share one more time just about the coffee that we have. Blueberry pancake, we're almost sold out. And then peppermint mocha. It's available on our website, which is www.movement-coffee.com. Two amazing flavors to pick from. And I also wrote a book, and I think it'd be a great Christmas present for some people. It's called Don't Stop. It says, learn to see your failures and struggles as opportunities. This is amazing for people who really need some encouragement about figuring out what their design and destiny is. And so I wrote a book that really helps sort of shake that out in them. I've read out loud the first couple of chapters over on that second channel that we talked about tonight. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, you can go over there. And I want to just take a second and say thank you for every single person who's supported me through Super Sticker or Super Chat tonight. It really takes all of us doing together what we cannot do alone. And we can't have this channel without people like you supporting and sending Cash Apps and PayPals and Venmos and things like that. And I want you to know that it really makes a huge difference. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen. I wasn't judging anything. I was using discernment, but I wasn't judging anything. So choose not to get offended. I think we should be unoffendable. So to the best of our ability. So, hey, thank you guys so much for being a part of our stream tonight. Do me a favor as soon as we end, go and comment on this video. That would make such a huge difference. Thank you, thank you, thank you.